I always think I'm going to get a cup of tea just quickly before you say, and live. I'm like, oh, no, damn it.
You're definitely not. Every time we get that first mouthful in. I like how you got a little cat next to your name now.
I know. Well, I was waiting for you guys to join the chat, so I was just playing around with emojis. So I was like, is there a wee cat one in
there? As soon as I said it, I thought, has she had that all the time? And I've never noticed it.
Literally just figured out how to add an emoji on there. So I'm like, there's all sorts. I might just do a different animal every week. Next week I could be like a camel or a crocodile. Do you know what? Every now and again, I'm going to change the animal just to see if anybody notices. It's going to be my new thing.
It's a new game. Awesome. Yeah. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another Blether with series. Already you will be thinking, what the hell's going on today? Random chat. Good evening, Dave. You're on YouTube. Getting in there first as the saying hello. Good evening to everyone watching. Welcome to another show. Yeah, let us know what's in your glass. Let us know what's going on, what you've been up to this week, what whiskey news you've or drams that you've encountered. As always, we're here to hopefully entertain you on a Thursday night for an hour or so of chat. Kat, what is in your glass?
I have. Oh, where did I put it? 2 seconds.
Lost in amongst all that whiskey.
Let me just clear the archive. I'll just head down to the basement, guys. Hang on. Talk among yourselves.
Well, I've gone into an Old Faithful for myself. I actually pulled out a shop exclusive.
Nice.
Our current exclusive Arthrusk 9-year-old Madeira wine cask. I was looking for a guest who hails from Forres, and I was looking for Ben Romick, and I'm shocked to see that I've got no Ben Romick in my collection at the moment. You got Scotland back for your bottle of Ben Romick at the back. There you go.
Yeah, I do. Why didn't I make that connection? Last time I went to see an old comrade of ours, I couldn't leave his shop without getting a Ben Romick. But that's not the one I actually looked out. That would have made much more sense. I went for the whole blended kind of theme, and I got my Drukit Dug, which I haven't opened yet. Little brown dog, guys. I always get the way. Yeah, this way. That. Can you see it? No.
No.
Oh, there. This is
there
what
you go. There you go.
So that's what I've got for tonight.
Guys, now you know what's in our glass. Let us know what's in yours, and we'll find out from our guest what is in his. We've got Fraser Campbell from Coppercairn joining us tonight, and here he is.
Hello.
Good evening, Fraser. How are you?
I'm doing splendid. I was just thinking, guys, like, given that I'm only about 10 miles away, should have just come and done this in person, but I think you're in different locations anyway, right?
We are, yeah.
We tried an in-house one once, and Mike's clever kind of camera thing just kept focusing on the wrong person and just ignoring our actual guest and following me around the room.
What was it, like a drone or something?
It was like it's called an Ozbot. It's a camera, external camera you plug in. It's really clear, really cool sound, but it's really clever as well. And I think it's designed for if you're doing a seminar or online classes. So when you walk around, it follows you. It focuses on. We use it for our in-house tastings, and we do kind of hybrid. So some people are at home watching, and the camera it'll start following people going to the toilet, and you just see all of a sudden this camera is watching this person go past. It's far too clever for its own good.
Yeah. Just, multiple lockdown stories of someone accidentally dialing into Zoom calls on the toilets and all that, eh? Kind of missed those days a little bit. Actually, this is the first time I've done something virtual, I think for a while, actually. If you'd asked me like 4 years ago, which is very scary to say out loud that lockdown was 4 years ago, but this was this was like 7 times a day.
Yeah. Oh, it was crazy. We were doing events, it's 7-8 times a week, doing tastings all over the world. It was pretty crazy. But yeah, we still get the guys who join in virtually. So we made friends with these guys through lockdown. They would join in. Everyone was looking for something to do. So we got a good core of friends, or who we now regard as friends, doing tastings online. And when we went back in house, we kind of wanted to keep in touch with these guys. So we do what's called a hybrid. Half a dozen or so people join online, and we just have the camera set up in the room. So they kind of hear the spiel and they get the tasting packs sent out. And it keeps us in touch with them, which is great.
Yeah. And have you guys had a busy January, or is it kind of succumb to, people doing damp January and dry January?
It's on a par with last year. We actually had a couple of really good events and things on that's kept us going, kept us occupied. But what it's allowed us to do is just get a bit more admin, a little bit more organized, and that kind of stuff going on. So
yeah, I was just saying that to Kat. It's been a lot of laptop time in January.
Yeah,
planning ahead and catching up.
Industry, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all need a January, don't we, to just do all the jobs that we've been putting off for the whole of the year, to be honest. But
yeah, it should be called like life admin-ury.
Admin-ury, yeah.
quite a long one to get on the calendar, but definitely worth thinking about here.
Admin-ury, I think I'll start calling it.
Admin-ury.
Yeah,
Admin-ury. Let's call it
followed by Dread-uery.
You should rebrand February, because people are going to need alcohol to get through. Rebrand January, because you'll need alcohol to get through.
I'll drink to that. Cheers.
There we go. So that's what's in your glass tonight.
Well, that's in one of the glasses. So I went outside to get a Guinness from the garage and then realized it was actually frozen. So I had to let it defrost for about half an hour before I could actually pour it. But in my slightly smaller glass, I'm having some of the Thompson Brothers SRV5 8-year-old blend.
I've heard so much good stuff about that. I haven't tried it yet. I need to get my hands on some.
It is it's pretty delightful on the nose. I've literally just poured it. This is the first try I've had.
Okay.
And it's just tropical fruit all the way. It's like honeydew melon. Yeah, beautiful.
Sounds yum.
Yeah, we were on after the Blether last week. I jumped on to Aqua Vitae Barflies and Roy's podcast, virtual bar, and he was doing his permashelf selection, and that was on there. And I'm hearing nothing but great stuff about it.
Yeah, I tried a few of the guys' stuff at the end of last year. They were over for a little. It was a Woodwinter's Fair up in Aberdeen, and so Phil was there. So we had a few drams and stuff. But yeah, cracking juice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They do some great stuff. We got introduced to them through the gin. Even the gins are really good product as well. So yeah. Some banging drams. It's not one that we can at the moment we don't stock. They're quite just the nature of who they are, what they do. They're quite selective, or who they can supply to. So they've got a great range of retailers who do their stuff, and if they were to then take us on board, one of them or a couple of them have to miss out. So we understand, but maybe some of the core products or the bigger market products like the blends we can get our hands on.
Yeah, and I think as well, when it comes to blends, I think a lot of people will naturally start drinking more blends, given whiskey pricing in general, over the past couple of years and the coming few years as well. So I think this was about £31 or £32 for the bottle for an 8-year-old blend. I mean, it's definitely worth it. I mean, if I think back to when we were doing our 8-year-old range at Dewars, I think those were priced at around £20, £19, £20 with different finishes.
Yeah.
I think they're underpriced for some of them. The Mizunara one should have definitely been higher. You guys tried that one at Whisky Talks, right?
Yeah.
I was driving, but I smelled it.
Did you not get a drive? Oh no, I think I drank yours as well, didn't I?
He did, because I had to leave early, and then the fucking train was cancelled, so I should have just stayed.
You should have.
I was raging.
I mean, the drinks in the bar afterwards is good, but I think me and Mitch we were done by about 10 o'clock. I was in bed by 10:30 that night because we'd been up since about 6:30 in the morning getting everything set up. So it was not a late night, I'm sad to say, but I know a lot of people did have a late night that came along.
It sounded the buzz was around the room at the end was that there was going to be some drams
Yeah.
Drinking. It was such a good mix of folk. Like, you could just imagine that it would have been good conversation afterwards. Just a really good group of folk. Maybe a good way of explaining how we all met. For those who don't know what the Whisky Talks was, you can maybe give us a little bit of background about what we're talking about.
Yeah, was that like a really subtle segue into like what we're doing with Coppercairn?
Absolutely, yeah.
Nicely done.
Yeah. So yeah, Whisky Talks we launched last November in Aberdeen. Myself and Mitch Bechard, who founded Coppercairn, and I sort of came on board with Mitch about a year ago, and we spoke about doing an event kind of predominantly in Aberdeen, because I think a lot of the big whiskey events, they tend to be like trade shows, and if there are seminars there, sometimes they're really hard to hear anything because the rooms are so chaotic. So we said, like, it'd be good just to do like some whiskey talks and seminars that people could actually hear and that everyone's relatively sober for. So so we kind of said, like, Aberdeen's often overlooked as a whiskey city. I think Edinburgh's got a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, London gets everything anyway. So that was kind of start of that conversation, and it only really took a few months to really sort of pull it all together. I think it was just a case of going, right, where are we going to do it? Obviously, we ended up doing the Sandman Hotel. Who are we going to invite down to be on the panels? And yeah, it unfolded, and we're now planning another 4 this year. So yeah, that's been January pretty much. So yeah.
That was great fun, and as Kat said, what an array of people we had in the room. We got to catch up, and people we've maybe spoken to via online emails, and that. But to meet them in person, it was great.
It was an amazing. It's kind of growing arms and legs like that so quickly. You just kind of rolled off the back of that and straight into the next big city is on the map. So fantastic that it's moved on like that.
Yeah, and we want to. For this year, we're definitely keeping it in Scotland, but if someone wants us to do, Whisky Talks Japan, fantastic, we'll still come and we'll do it. But yeah, I mean, it's really about...
free for that also, by the way, just so you know.
Say that again.
I'm free for that also, just so you know.
Really know what
you have to work for a Japanese company.
Sorry, I missed both of that. You both spoke at the same time. I missed both of those things.
You go ahead, Fraser.
No, I think for now is really about supporting, not really just supporting the local whiskey community, but bringing together people from whiskey, hospitality, tourism, media, and actually creating like some nice networking events as well for people just to hang out. And like say, people you've probably spoken to an email a lot, maybe not caught up with in person for a while. So almost like creating a bit of a forum for people to do that. And then obviously we had a few whiskeys throughout the day. We had some nice highballs and cocktails. Had some really nice speakers, yourself included, Kat. So it was a really fun little day.
It was. I really enjoyed it. Actually, I just think it would be something I would definitely go back to, just to be like part of the crowd, to be honest. Because it was just the day flew past, and it was a long day, but there was a lot fit into it.
Yeah,
so, no, it was a great idea.
I would like to be part of the crowd next time and not doing all the organizing, to be honest.
Organizing is the rubbish side of anything, whether it's a tasting or whether it's a show or whether it's an event. The organizing side of things is the boring part.
Yeah, it's like 3 or 4 months of your life, and then it's over in about 6 hours. Which, to your point, Kat, it felt like about 2 hours. It just went so fast. Mm-hmm. So.
It's always a sign of a good day if it goes past fast and you don't notice it.
And you don't really get the chance to enjoy it yourself when you're doing it, because you're that, especially something with as much tech as you guys were dealing with as well. There's always that fear in the back of your head, please work.
Yeah. Well, we hired a tech guy come and set up all our like mics and audio. Because we just thought we can't really let anything go to chance, because there's only, there was Jo as well. Jo is Mitch's partner, and she obviously is 1/3 of the business as well. So she does a lot of the back of the house and signing everyone in. So there was really only 3 of us, and me and Mitch were on stage most of the time. So yeah, it's like when you're a small team, you kind of need to bring in a tech person to do this. But we've just confirmed the next one for Edinburgh is going to be at Voodoo Rooms, and they're always set up to do events. Like they have, these on like a daily basis. They do loads of stuff at the festival, and they do like comedy nights, music nights. So they're on the ball with tech stuff. So I think for Edinburgh, we can rest easy, knowing we're in pretty good hands.
Awesome. Best of luck with that when it happens.
Yeah.
So talking a bit about Coppercairn then, also for those who don't know, you maybe better explain what that is too.
Yeah, we're kind of going back that way, aren't we? So Coppercairn, Mitch Bechard founded after leaving William Grant and Sons as the Glenfiddich US ambassador. I think it's now, I want to say 3 years ago. I think he founded just after lockdown with basically taking the best part of ambassador life, which is hosting people with a whiskey in their hands, but predominantly in one country, i.e. Scotland. So what we kind of really do is give people whiskey experiences, whether it's obviously taking them to any number of distilleries, which could be over 1 day, it could be up to 5 days, it could just be Speyside, it could also be the whole of Scotland. We've had trips out to, Talisker, up to Highland Park, all over Scotland. But I'd say the guts of the business is really taking people around Speyside, but it's also showing them all the hidden nooks and crannies that your day-to-day tour guide, or if you're driving yourself, you just wouldn't find. So it might be taking them up to Cabrick and telling them a bit of backstory about illicit distillation, taking them down to the Highlander Inn, for a nice little dram there, taking them to the Downs Bar for a cocktail. It's really just pulling back the curtain on Speyside. So that's, we've got 2 vehicles for taking groups around. It could be 2 people, it could be 25 people. And a lot of our business comes from like the US, but we get a lot of local trips as well. So that's the majority of the business. But when Mitch reached out to me last year, I'd obviously been with Bacardi for 5 years as the Global Dewars Ambassador. So after leaving there in 2021, I moved back to Scotland with the intent of staying in whiskey, but not really knowing what that would look like. I'd kind of done the ambassador thing. And I was like, I'd happily do it again if it was the right brand, but I felt I wanted to get into a small business and be a bit more hands-on in that regard. So Mitch gave me a phone because my best mate, Struan, who's the global ambassador for Glenfiddich, had worked with Mitch and sort of put us together. I knew Mitch already, but he'd mentioned to Mitch that I was looking for my next gig. So Mitch just gave me a call and said, things are getting pretty busy, but also there's other arms and legs of the business I'd like to grow with your help. So in that sense, things like consultancy, doing trainings, whiskey menu designs, it could be, consultancy and tastings, doing more of those as well. And obviously events like Whisky Talks. That's definitely a 2-man job or a 3-person job. So right now, it all, Coppercairn started off as whiskey tours and adventures, and now is becoming every sort of whiskey experience. Basically, if whiskey is involved, we'll be doing it.
Will you be making it?
Yeah, well, I've signed some NDAs. No, we're always up for doing projects and collaborations, put it that way. But I think as far as physically making whiskey, unless it was like a one-off infinity blend bottle, I think we'll probably just stick to hosting people, making sure they're having a good time with someone else's whiskey in their hand.
Yeah. With your background, I don't suppose making your own Coppercairn blend or something like that wouldn't be too far out of the question, would it?
Never say never. Anything and everything's possible. But I suppose blending has become so trendy again. When I started Dewars, this was only back in 2016. I think blends were still heavily disregarded, and that has changed a lot since that time. And that's only about 7 years ago.
Yeah,
something like that. 7-8 years ago. I feel really old saying that. But yeah, blends in recent years, especially like with the likes of what I'm drinking right now, guys like Pete and Dunk at Woven, all these guys, and people making really interesting blends in different ways. And obviously, when I was at Dewars, we were experimenting a lot with finishing for the 8-year-old series. We did the double series, which was really successful. So yeah, I think blends are really on the up again. They're definitely on people's radars again.
Yeah.
So yeah,
the main reason for that is it won't be purely price, but it must have an impact on it. Do you think people are just more open. They're more educated. They're more willing to try.
Yeah, I think whiskey advocacy and education has played a big part. I mean, I think pricing is a big thing. Like I said before, I mean, the price of single malts, single casks have really gone up a lot in recent years. So I think, people don't have, the day-to-day person doesn't have endless amounts of money to go out and buy really expensive whiskey. So they're thinking, what can be like my kitchen whiskey I can have when I'm cooking? What can be my highball whiskey, for mixing soda or ginger beer or ginger ale at home? And blends always, give you that amazing versatility.
Yeah. I guess from my point of view in the shop looking at blends, what we're seeing now is kind of trusted indie bottlers and things like that coming out with blends. So you look at Adelphi, they've come out with the Dancing Manny, and then McLeod's Nose. Berry Brothers have their blended malt range, and you've got guys like Kenny at Dram and that bringing out a kind of core blend. And these are guys that whiskey aficionados, geeks, stalwarts, whatever you want to call them, know and trust and believe in, and they say, well, if they're doing it, it must be good. Thompson Brothers, these guys. So I think there's a lot of faith in what they're doing, and it's encouraging people to try it, and then hopefully, that'll trickle down into the kind of industry blends, your Dewars, your White Mackays, and this kind. Because there was a big rift, really, wasn't there, on between the Optic blend and the single malt.
Yeah,
for the last 20, 30 years.
But it's all pretty recent. If you think about the whiskey industry as a whole, that rift only really started in the 1960s, with when single malts became commercial, and that mentality unfortunately stuck for blends. But at the end of the day, blends still account for 90% of our exports for Scotch whiskey. So I think the attitude is different in Scotland. Like if you go to South America or Central America or Mexico and the Caribbean, where I spent a lot of time with Dewars, like people love blends over there. Like they're drinking blends every day. They don't have access to as many single malts as we do in Scotland. So it's really a sort of Scottish mentality, I think, and maybe in other countries as well. But I think the rest of the world, love blends. In Scotland, we're still very much single malts are better.
I think it's part of that really a kind of old-fashioned mentality, isn't it? Of has to be single malt. Yeah, don't add water to it. You kind of look manly while you're drinking it. Definitely wear a smoking jacket. Like it's just
exactly. Yeah, smoke your pipe next to the fire with a little Scotty dog and a tin of tartan shortbread.
Exactly, with the wife dutifully stood next to you.
We've come a long way, but we've still got a long way to go.
We do. I hear it. We do hear it quite a lot still. Like, oh no, we don't drink blends, or he doesn't drink a blend, or no, is that a blend? No, I won't drink a blend. But for every one of those people out there, there's more that are experimenting, I think.
It's quite a common occurrence in the shop when somebody comes in, and we have a large client base who aren't buying for themselves. It's a present for somebody. Okay, so kind of get a gauge of what they're looking for. What's the budget, and what kind of whiskey do they like? There have to be a malt. Not really narrowing it down there, but okay, we can ask a few more questions. But people who even they're not buying for themselves, they just have this in their head that it has to be a malt, and that's the best that you're going to get. It's kind of been ingrained over probably since maybe the 70s, 80s that we really started marketing single malt as the premium side of whiskey, and that's the best whiskey will be.
We can probably blame Scottish tourism for a lot of it as well, because whenever people come to Scotland, they go to a distillery, they don't go to a blending facility. So the revered nature of single malts is largely down to the ability to go to a single distillery and get told all these magical stories while you sip through multiple cask fills that you can only get at the distillery. And blends don't have that ability. However, changes like things like the Johnny Walker experience in Edinburgh is definitely turning people's heads around a little bit as well. So I think we'll see more of that.
Do you know what I find with Johnny Walker is that a lot of people, it's their whiskey they can name, but a lot of them don't actually know it's a blend. I think it's just the name that they know. They don't really need to know anything else about it. And I think that's part of the problem. As soon as you start categorizing it as single malt or blend, it just creates a shutter in people. But if you just kind of give it on its own merit, then
do you know something? Oh, hello.
This is a little blend of Mike and Tony.
Ew, it sounds weird when you say it like that.
That's like the most Scottish head of hair ever, isn't it?
It is, right?
Or is it more Irish? Is the red hair more Irish?
No, it's definitely Scottish. Well, there's actually a bit of English in there too. But...
I won't say it. I mean, look, we've got some pretty good English whiskies nowadays, so we can't really say anything.
We do. Hey, buddy.
But so, Kat, see what you were saying before, Kat, about I think people have a lot of brand association and they don't really know what it is. And like when I was on a global team in Party for a long, 4 years, and we did loads of insight work into like consumer perception of whiskeys. And most people in America think Monkey Shoulders are bourbon.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you're right. People have brand recognition, but they don't necessarily know or care what category it belongs to.
Yeah. No, I think that's very true. I see it quite often with with a few things. But again, is that branding? Is it marketing? I don't know.
Am I right in thinking that Monkey Shoulder is the most asked for blend by name in the world or in Scotland, I think.
Is that right?
But then with that fonder most asked for blended malt because it doesn't really fit into the blended Scotch category, does it?
Yeah, it's maybe blended malt.
Yeah.
But people ask for Monkey Shoulder rather than a blend or whatnot.
Yeah, they did a great job of like, I mean, if you're going to build a brand, you're going to build it in a bar. That's really, where you start off. And Monkey Shoulder did a pretty amazing job of doing that. They had good ambassadors. They had fun advocacy pieces. They did all the right things to get bartenders engaged.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think yeah.
Talking of bartending, am I right in thinking that's where you started out your whiskey journey?
A long time ago in a galaxy far away called Forest.
we have a comment of Facebook from another Fraser. Fraser McFarlane. Do you recognise that name?
Oh, holy cow. Fraser McFarlane that I used to work with in the Bobbin like 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
We've come a long way from the early days of working in Scream student pubs. Great to see you're doing well.
That is a blast from the past. Wow. Yeah, so so did you guys set that up on purpose? Because that was literally like my second bar job.
Really?
No way.
Fraser is a customer of ours, and he's hosted a couple of tastings for us as well. He's helped us out in the shop.
Oh wait, that's Fraser. Oh, Fraser. Hi Fraser. Yeah. I don't think I knew your last name. I just knew you as Fraser, who sometimes does tastings Cat can't do.
So when I moved through to Aberdeen, because obviously I started off in Speyside, went to school in Forres. When I moved to Aberdeen to go to uni, pretend to go to classes. The Bobbin was the first bar job I had. I was probably there for about 2 years, and it was just, yellow card pubs. You remember those, right?
Mm-hmm.
So pound a drink on a Monday night, just like rugby boys and students, and it was just utter carnage. So I remember the first pound a drink night we did on a Monday, and at the end of the night there was about 500 empty pint glasses on the bar. And we just looked at it going, do you know what, we're probably going to be here for about 3 hours. So I think we actually just started pushing them off the bar to smash them so we didn't have to actually clean them. I think Fraser probably would have been working with me one of those nights. But yeah, it was, I think back in those days, if you were bartending, it was never usually a career aspiration. If you were working somewhere like New York, it probably was the case because that was around about the time when the first re-emergence of the cocktail bar really sort of came around with bars like Milk and Honey opening up with Sasha Petrasky, and that really kick-started, the revival of the cocktail. But that hadn't really reached Scotland by that stage. I think, the early 2000s is when cocktails sort of came back on the scene, or at least people actually doing it properly versus like the 80s and the 90s.
I think Aberdeen's got a pretty steady cocktail scene at the moment. There's some great bar, your Orchids and Tippling House and Bar 99 and these places with some pretty top guys.
I do a lot of stuff with Gomez, Adrian Gomez, who owns Tippling. So actually, when I moved back to Aberdeen a few years ago, before me and Mitch started doing stuff, I was doing a lot of tastings for Gomez. Still do on occasion, in fact. So so Tippling's great. That's probably one of my go-to bars in Aberdeen. And yeah, the community here, like it's really tight. There's always loads of competitions and things going on.
What's your advice for people that find cocktails far too intimidating? I mean, there's a lot of ingredients. Like, how do we make that easier?
Oh, you mean for making them or drinking them?
Yeah. Oh, no, I don't find drinking them intimidating. Like, if you can make them, just keep bringing them, that's fine. Making them, like, I'm just like, nah, no thanks. I don't want to.
I mean, this is the thing, right? So when I was at Dewars, the drink we were championing was the highball. We spent a lot of time doing I spent a lot of time coming up with highballs for all the different Dewars 8-year-olds we were doing, because it is that like first drink you should be able to make at home really easily, but like doing it well. So instead of just bunging, whiskey in a mixer and a glass with 1 cube of ice, actually chilling your glass, adding some, chilled whiskey and a really nice, maybe like a Fever Tree flavored mixer in there as well. I think that's kind of the first step. But yeah, I mean, drinks like, the old fashioned are a good place to start if you've never made a cocktail. But it is easy to get wrong. If you put in too much sugar syrup, too many bitters, the wrong whiskey. I think when it comes to making whiskey cocktails, that's probably the category I used to spend a lot of time kind of educating on when I was traveling, because I think when someone's trying to make a whiskey cocktail and they don't know their whiskeys, and they, someone asks for like a, really nice simple highball, but they put in like Ardbeg Supernova with soda, and it just comes out tasting like really TCP heavy, it's that kind of thing where going, actually, if they make something sweeter, it might work out better. Mm-hmm. So there's just a lot of basic mixing knowledge, probably what flavors do work and don't work together, that only comes with trial and error, which is the fun part, let's face it.
I guess it's like pairing whiskey with food, for example. You always have pairings that work and pairings that don't. It's just getting the flavor profiles right, I guess. Yeah.
And again, it's just fun. It's just fun to try stuff. But I think, basic principles for mixing whiskeys, I think it's you've got to try everything neat first, and then go, right, if this is like a refill bourbon single malt and it's like relatively young, like an 8-year-old, there's a good chance it's going to go well with soda or something lighter. But if it's like a 25-year-old that's like first fill Oloroso sherry, it's going to be really tannic, and it's probably not going to mix well with soda. You're going to need something like ginger ale to cut through that really sort of tannic, rich quality. So, but yeah, I mean, cocktails in general. I mean, I think in lockdown, I was in my kitchen, like just by myself, just making up cocktail recipes for work half the time. And it was really hard to get any feedback. You've got to have someone there to taste it, because you've been sitting there for that long making them yourself. Like you're half cut by the time you've made a few. You've got to have someone to have a taste and bounce them off of. So
yeah, I'll keep experimenting. I do love a whiskey cocktail, so I just need
what's your go-to cocktail, Kat?
Oh, it's so boring. I love an old fashioned, but as you say, like somebody has to do it well, and I don't have a sweet tooth in the slightest. So see if it's really, really sweet, I'm just like, no. And I hate eggs, so I can't do anything egg related. They just give me the actual dry heave.
Yeah, so no whiskey sours then.
No.
We've managed to convince James, who's watching on Facebook. He's taking his wife to a bar for a cocktail.
Nice. I think James was saying that he wants to come to Scotland sometimes. Do you know what? Come to Scotland, take your wife, get a cocktail. Like, I've started your holiday.
Yeah, sure. Well, he also said my whiskey is so much easier than Gail's martini. And I guess there is that side of the cocktail, isn't it? When you go to a bar and you want it done right, you have to wait for it. And, we pay a premium because we're taking up a lot of the bartender's time to make sure that that's done right and the ingredients are fresh and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Where, you can say, just give me a whiskey and just pour it in a glass, and it's very simple.
Yeah, I have a bit of a sweet tooth for, like, one of my favorite cocktails, like guilty pleasures, is a grasshopper, which is creme de menthe with creme de cacao, which is obviously a clear white chocolate liqueur. with. It's supposed to be with milk and cream, so it's like a really just like heart attack dessert drink.
Wow.
But that's a guilty pleasure drink. So,
What's a good cocktail for a really peated whiskey then? Like, what's some of your better known peaty whiskey cocktails?
Penicillin is a good one if you've got a blended Scotch and some peated whiskey as well. Penicillin's probably, I'd say, the best Scotch whiskey cocktail to come out in the last 20 years, which came from a bartender called Sam Ross, who he was part of the bar team at Milk and Honey, and now has Attaboy, which is the same site, but it's a different name now. So he created it back in, I think it was 2005, and it's basically a mixture of, it's a whiskey sour, no egg white, so you'll be fine, Kat.
Right.
It's a whiskey sour, blended Scotch, lemon, honey and ginger, and you shake it up, pour it over ice, and then you float some smoky whiskey on top. So if you're not into something like really solely peated whiskey, that's the best cocktail to go to, 100%.
Mike, we're going to have to get you trained up on that one for the bar upstairs.
Yeah, I'll give it a bash. I was just looking up because I've heard a lot of people talking about penicillin. I've never actually looked into what's in it. And
it's basically a cold hot toddy, if you want to simplify it.
I guess it is when you look at the ingredients.
Yeah. Honey, ginger, lemon juice. Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah. A hot toddy for summer, basically. Yeah.
That sounds good. We'll give that one a go. Annette
got
says she likes monkey shoulder.
Flying around.
You got a fly.
Yes, have you not got some chopsticks, Mike? No. Yeah, Mr. Miyagi.
Mr. Miyagi, yeah. I'm not quite at that skill set with the chopsticks. I can fold a hoisin duck pancake only using chopsticks.
Wow. With one hand, blindfolded.
Not blindfolded, but with one hand.
Fold it how? Like, are we talking like hospital corner type folding, or are we just talking like folding it in half?
The pancake, the duck pancakes. So you get your duck, and then I don't put the sauce in with the chopstick. That would be a bit weird.
Is this just from holding a baby in one hand while you're trying to make your dinner? Is that basically where it comes from?
It's pretty much no. It was actually one of the first times I met my wife's family. They went to Chinese, and that was part of some weird challenge to impress them with if you can use chopsticks. So I had to fold up this.
So you went to like an initiation just to date your wife?
It felt like it. Yeah.
She's not even from Chinese origin. I don't even understand the relevance of this.
I don't know. The more I think about it just now, I haven't thought about it in a long time. But yeah, it was quite bizarre.
It's funny how you find out your skills in life, eh? Just these little hidden talents, which you could still potentially monetize. That you could have a YouTube channel just folding duck pancakes.
TikTok
people
videos.
make money farting into jars nowadays, so you never know.
This is true.
That's very true. Very, very true.
Is that your side hustle, Mike? Is it the one you didn't?
Actually, I'm just making money as we speak just now. If you see me like twisting jars at the side.
The Inverurie bottled part shop.
I am not packaging those for like posting. Just saying, okay.
Imagine having to do the tasting notes for them.
That's a brilliant idea. You could actually, people could write tasting notes or guess what whiskey did I have before I filled this jar.
I mean, this chat's gone right downhill, and I've not even finished my first dram. So
we've segued a little bit. Let's go back. So Roman Skowronek, I apologize for murdering your surname, has commented on Facebook, love a highball with Ballantine's 12 because of the slight smokiness.
I mean,
pick the right whiskey.
Yeah, some smoky blends like, Black Bottle's really good, I think, for highballs. Johnny Walker, obviously, as well. So, yeah, I mean, peated whiskey and a highball, I think blends with a heavy peat influence are great with soda, ginger ale. I think when you go straight to like the proper peat monsters, like 200 ppm plus, and just go straight in with the soda, and especially if they're cast strength as well, it doesn't always pan out. Some of them do work though. I mean, actually, do you know one of the best books you can possibly buy to learn how to mix whiskeys is Dave Broom's Whiskey Manual.
Oh yeah.
It's just a little handbook, and he went through, I think it was five or six different mixers. I've still got the book upstairs. It's great. 5 or 6 mixers with about 250 different whiskeys, I think it was. Scotch whiskeys, American, Japanese, and then he rates each mixer out of 5 for mixability with that specific whiskey. That's a good book if you want to learn more about mixing whiskeys.
I'm gonna write that one down. I love Dave Broom. What's the book? What's it called? A Place and Time. What's it called?
Sense and Place.
Sense and Place. I just made up a title. It's such a
great
book.
Yeah, it kind of goes nicely with his little Netflix documentary as well.
Yeah. I've got this book as well, which is a great book on the Jerry Thomas.
Oh, that's an oldie.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's not a vintage one. That's like a reprint, right?
No, it's a reprint. Yeah, I mean the vintage one would have been pretty cool, but this is great. It's great fun to read. And just some of the language that he's got in there just is pretty cool. And
do you know what's interesting about those old cocktail recipes from, say, that like Prohibition or like the late 1800s, and it kind of correlates with how whiskey, I think, was made at that stage as well. Everyone's palates were probably more hardened and used to sort of abuse versus nowadays. So the recipes back then, you kind of recreate them now exactly as they were, and you go, this tastes absolutely howling. But then whiskey back then was all like heavily peated, heavily sherried, so the recipes back then don't necessarily correlate with how you would make them now. Yeah.
So I'm just asking my teenage son to go and turn the heating off because I'm absolutely roasting. Sorry, just to be rude for 2 seconds.
You had to do the normal mother thing and shout.
Well, I could have put myself on mute and just hollered, but I would have just looked like a crazy thing.
Crazy lady.
I know. And do you know what? It's so expensive. Like, we're doing 3 hours and that's it. So that's all you're getting, kids.
So, Fraser, what do you enjoy more, being a bartender or training bartenders?
I mean, being a bartender it was the best part of 15 plus years. I can't even remember. I started when I was 18, and that ran up pretty much full time until I started with Dewars. And it was that sort of gradual shift into doing, more whiskey related stuff, which is kind of stuck really. I don't think my back and my shoulders and my knees could really take it nowadays, to be honest. But I mean, it's an amazing way to catapult yourself in the drinks industry and meet people, network, line up the next opportunity and so on. But yeah, I mean, I had a great time bartending. I was in Edinburgh for, after leaving Aberdeen, where I was really just working in pubs like the Bobbin, to then moving into cocktail bars when I went to Edinburgh. And then I went to Australia for about 5 years, which was only supposed to be 1. But had a very good time working out there. And that was probably kind of peak bartending career out in Australia. That was definitely the good years. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I love bartending. It was a big part of my life, but now I'm kind of probably more comfortable and happy doing more whiskey focused stuff. I think the hours are kinder.
Yeah.
You've been to amazing countries though as a brand ambassador.
Yeah. Actually, I mean, yeah, even ambassador life was pretty grueling, probably more so than being a bartender in a lot of ways, because, we always painted the amazing pictures on Instagram of here I am in Mexico just hanging out, a pool drinking micheladas, versus 5 minutes later trying to jump on my computer and catch up on 3 months of, expenses, while answering 100 emails. So, but yeah, lots of jet lag, but some absolutely incredible countries I would have never, normally ended up in, like little tiny Caribbean islands like Curacao, and went to South Africa a few times, Japan. But yeah, I think all in all it was about 45 countries in 4 years.
Wow. Have you got like a standout favorite that you would always?
I went through a lot of passports. Yeah. Japan was definitely up there.
Okay.
Have you guys been out there?
No, I would love to. And I literally work for a Japanese company. Hint, hint, if anybody's watching. No, I've
That's your segue to Whisky Talks Japan.
Yeah, exactly. If anyone's listening.
Yeah. If anybody at house wants to send me out.
But I tell you, the one thing you will not find in Japan is Japanese whiskey.
Really?
If you go over there with an empty suitcase, you're bound for disappointment. Everything, like I only managed to go to a couple of distilleries. I went to Hakushu with high hopes, of coming back with something special, and it was all just non-age statement.
So where is the good stuff hidden? Is it all just?
No, it's just not in Japan. It's everywhere else but Japan. It's in the US. It's in Asia. It's in other parts of Asia. It's in Europe. It's just everywhere. It's on a lot of auction sites.
Wow.
But yeah, the bars there are incredible. I mean, some of the bars in Tokyo, I'm going to struggle to remember its name. There's this amazing vinyl bar where you can't take any photos. There's 500 vinyl records. You're just sitting there drinking your whiskey cocktail or highball, just listening to vinyl, and there's no one on their phones. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
that sounds awesome. It looks like a beautiful.
We need more of that kind of places, don't we? Get off your phone and talk.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was was it Tommy Dewar? He kind of started out as one of the first ones to start traveling around and
first kind of marketing kind of campaign, wasn't it?
He did 26 countries over 2 years initially. There was another trip after that as well. And he definitely would have referred himself as an ambassador, but he was an expert marketeer for sure. He was definitely paving the way for future ambassadors. But he just kind of lived and breathed the brand. Like some of his ideas, like that he came up with to advertise Dewars. Like Dewars actually designed and created the first ever filmed advert for a brand back in 1898.
That's amazing.
Which was based on a painting called Whiskey of His Forefathers. And it was just 3 guys in a kilt jumping out of a painting to get a guy's whiskey. And they actually turned that into a black and white advert. You can still find it on YouTube. It's a stupid black and white advert. But it does make you think how far we've come in terms of whiskey marketing. Because if, 3 guys in kilts dancing around trying to steal a whiskey can sell whiskey back in, the late 1800s, I don't think that would necessarily work nowadays, but
it's quite funny because if you watch the advert today, it doesn't really mean much because there's no whiskey in the there's not like a bottle or a logo or a label or something. It's just the guy. I think there's a Highlander, there's a soldier, and there's an aristocrat or a laird or something as the 3 guys. And I think what they were trying to say is this whiskey's for everyone. It doesn't matter your social standing. But if you have to watch an advert on its own, it doesn't mean much, and you really need to know the story of the poster or the painting that goes with it.
Yeah, I would imagine that advert came with like a 3-hour sort of seminar beforehand to explain what it was.
Yeah, probably, yeah. And one of the kilts is like halfway up the guy's thigh. It's ridiculously short.
But yeah, so if I don't know if you've ever been down to the distillery at Aberfelder, where they have the museum where they tell you a lot of these stories and stuff. It's pretty incredible when you see it all together, this sort of the branding and marketing legacy of Dewars. It really was one of those brands, like a lot. I mean, let's face it. All the whiskey industry was built on the titans of blended Scotch. So without these guys traveling the world and, really getting blends out there, we wouldn't be sitting here today talking about it.
I know. Well, quite a few distilleries were built by people who were creating blends because they wanted to have their own source of single malt. Things like Teachers building Ardmore is similar as well. They just wanted to have their own single malt.
Think about how many workhorse distilleries now are just pumping out whiskey for blends anyway. A lot of the distilleries you only see a flora and fauna bottling or a really limited release. From Diageo or something similar, like they're still just pumping out whiskey for blends, really.
But even a lot of your kind of common supermarket sort of single malts like Glenmorangie, I had no idea until I went over how much their production went into actually blends, for blends. Like it's a vast amount. Because you look at Glenmorangie, it just looks like this quaint little wee distillery cottage. Like in in Shrek when they go to like the fairy godmother's kind of little wee cottage, and then behind it's a massive factory. That's Glenmurray. It's like it's a little wee cottage, and then behind it is this massive factory. It's an epic place, really cool. I really enjoyed my time there.
I absolutely love Glenmurray. I think Glenmurray is one of the most underrated and potentially undervalued whiskies in Speyside. I absolutely have so much time. Like Ian, who's the Global Ambassador, is an amazing guy.
And their distillery manager, Dr. Cornelia Madouli, if you're watching, Dr. K, also top lad.
I think where Glenmurray really sort of, started to shine was when Le Martiniquais bought them over, back in the noughties. Was it 2008? I think it was. And then they obviously had access to all these amazing wine casks, so they could then start doing like a Chardonnay cask, and really sort of having a bit of French heritage in a way. But yeah, I think that's where Glenmurray shines. But you can still get really good bottles for really good prices. Still really good juice.
Even their shop exclusives and their single casks, you're like, sorry, are you sure that's how much it is? Okay, I'll have them all. But yeah, it's just.
I guess it's a weird one, Glenmurray, because we have at the quarterly a couple of the classic range, which is your sherry, your port, your peated, non-age statements. And there's such good value, like 20 quid a bottle, £25, whatever it is now. And we kind of struggle because when we maybe an indie bottler cask strength, a 12-year-old or a 16-year-old, and it comes in at £100, say £90, whatever it is, those are the ones that we struggle to sell because people are like, Glenmurray, oh, that's that cheap supermarket one, isn't it? And they've just got this mindset that's what, and you're like, well, yeah, but single it's cask strength. This is a completely different animal. I wonder if there's almost that kind of reverse marketing on that it is seen as a Speyburns, another one that you think, it's such good quality liquid. Why are they selling it so cheap?
I think it's a lot of legacy pricing issues. I think there's just some historical bad pricing decisions from the UK and other markets as well. So they kind of carry through because I think it was Glenmorangie that used to have Glenmurray, wasn't it? And I think they probably put the price down so it didn't compete with Glenmorangie in Scotland, and then effectively made it look, undervalued. Yeah, would be my guess. Because you don't really want two whiskies cannibalizing each other, so you can drop the price on one to almost put it into a different segment. Mm-hmm. Have it as like almost in standard whiskey versus premium. Yeah.
And I guess there is that people are always looking for a price point whiskey at that kind of £20-25. It's going to be quality. It is. I said we had a tasting with Graham Cool, who was the former distillery manager of distiller, and said you could. And that was at the when did he leave? He left to go to Dimple Distillery in Ireland, Dingle Distillery in Ireland, I think. And I said to him then, you could knock another £5 onto that bottles and people still buy it. And he said, yeah, but it's not about, we can afford to do that. So why charge for the sake of charging? It's a nice ethos to have for them. And I guess they're making so much, that's not their bread and butter. The blending whiskey is their bread and butter, and that's where they're making the money. So, kudos to them, because a lot of people would have jumped on that and thought, what? Let's charge an extra £5 just because we can.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, if you're starting a new distillery nowadays, there must be so much pressure to get your whiskey out as soon as possible, trying to keep it at a reasonable price, but also bearing in mind that people will pay triple the standard price for the first release. So, and then obviously saying how much do we want to sell for blending once it comes of age? How much are we going to keep for bottles? It's a lot of pressure for new distilleries now to really think about their pricing and how to pay back the shareholders.
Do you think there's going to be an issue in the future where, because there's a lot of these new distilleries coming out that just they're refusing to sell to blends, it's all going to be single malt? Do you think there's going to be a shift there, or is there enough kind of packing distilleries out there that we're covered?
Well, I mean, if you look at what I think, there'll be part of that for new distilleries, but I think the older distilleries will still have those, contracts in place for selling whiskey to make blends. I don't really see that dipping too much. I think it's more the indie bottling side of things, where you're seeing a bigger shift, like the inability to get casks. Distilleries maybe not selling new make as much as they used to lay into casks as well. I mean, you've got to wonder, by Gordon MacPhail's decision to stop filling casks and just focus on the distilleries, right?
Yeah. I was going to mention that when you said about new make becoming less and less available. If you think that was where Gordon MacPhail would be forced into that, or was it a decision they made based on, we're not going to get the same contracts as we've had, so let's cut it now.
But they've been in the business a long time, so they can probably look into the crystal ball a little bit better, and kind of see what's coming down the roads. And there's definitely going to. I mean, I hope there isn't a price bubble, but it feels like there's a couple of different ones, whether it's around cask investments, cost of goods, taxes on whiskey, Brexit. We've had everything thrown at the industry in the past few years.
Warehousing's another problem, isn't it, with the industry? I think a lot of places are struggling for maturing stock.
Space.
Yeah. It's I think we'll have to start renting out our back gardens and building dunnage warehouses.
I was going to say we'll all be drinking new make, but we won't be able to get a hold of it. We won't be able to buy it from any of the distilleries.
That's true.
They say, what is it, 5 or 10 casks for every person in Scotland?
There's 22.5 million casks in Scotland maturing at the moment, and about 1.5
casks for every person.
1.1 million of those casks are privately owned.
Wow. That's amazing.
Wow.
Friends with the wrong people, I reckon.
Definitely. Would you guys ever, have you ever bought a cask, or you must have a few stashed away, Mike?
No, no, I don't. every cask I've bought has been for bottling for the shop, or exclusive or something like that. We get a lot of people asking about it. We get a lot of people saying, "What's your advice?" Or I've been offered a cask. My first bit of that advice is never buy from somebody who's wanting to sell you something, especially if it's Facebook or cold call. Get the research and make sure and have an end game, have a get out plan that is going to work for you. So a lot of people think they don't fully understand, and I don't think the brokers kind of explain enough what happens to the whiskey in the cask. Evaporation. Because I know guys who bought a cask. It's a kid's investment. I'm going to hand it over to them. If that kid gets to, you've had the cask for 20, 30 years, you pass it on to your kid for. Oh, great! I've got a cask of whiskey somewhere. Don't know where. I've got a leaflet.
Where's the paperwork?
Yeah. By the time they think, right, let's see what's in the cask, and there's nothing left because it's been sitting there for 60 years untouched.
But that's the worst thing. The assumption is that it's going to be of value the longer you leave it, and that's the worst possible way to look at it. Because especially if you don't know the distillery character, you don't know what state the wood's in. If you leave it for 50 years and it gets to the stage where it's unusable, you're basically screwed.
Yeah. Or worse still, like one of the, the cask has failed and half of it's all over the floor, and you just got.
Well, that happened at Springbank, didn't it?
Was it? There was in the news kind of tail end of last year. Somebody they reckoned the cask would have been worth £290,000 or something like that.
God.
Not now.
But I think there was something to do with the guy's insurance. He'd stopped paying his insurance payments, and then when he went to check in his cask, all of a sudden it had leaked. And somebody somewhere knew that payments had stopped and the insurance had expired or whatever. And I think the brokers who kind of came up overnight, there's a Dutch report, wasn't it? Financial report in 2020 came out and said that whiskey's the greatest thing ever to invest in. And then overnight there was like 200 odd brokers kind of started up. And these guys are banking on the customer being a bit blind and saying, "Here's my money, give me a cask."
Yeah.
And I think they're looking at a lot of it. They're looking at somebody buying a cask, not fully aware of insurance purposes, banking on that bit of paper being genuine, and then they're looking at a lot of people passing it on to kids, as I say, and forgetting about it for 50 years, or passing away and never cashing in, or never, not leaving that information to, it must have made an absolute killing on people not knowing that a cask or selling fake casks and selling bits of paper for tens of thousands of pounds.
Yeah, it's the Wild West. It's totally unregulated. And
Yeah.
even, without going into recent stories about, new regulation bodies coming in, people don't know what they're buying. They don't know what price they should be buying it at. And chances are the cask they bought has already gone through 5 people who've all added their 5%. So someone asked me the other day, I was just chatting to a guy down at the beach, and he's like, should I invest in a cask of whiskey? I was like, look, if you're going to invest in whiskey, buy bottles, because you'll know what you've got. You're not going to, you know exactly where it is. You can sell it whenever you want to, or you can open it whenever you want to.
Yeah.
It's like no one knows what to do with a cask of whiskey. Like no one's going to be told when to get rid of it or sell it or who to sell it to. Like say, Mike, the Cowboys passing on casks now will not give you, a PDF to say, right, here's how to manage your cask over the next 30 years.
Yeah, it's scary, and how many times you open up Facebook and it's buy our cask, invest in whiskey and all this.
Either that, or it's these people that write the comments at the bottom of like posts, oh, don't go to that shop, I've got all these bottles at home, contact me, DM me and stuff, and it's just like cowboys. But how many people fall for that as well? Try and buy them cheap on the
all
slide.
of them promise 500% returns. That's why.
Yeah, it's a scary old world. Not something I would give advice on anyway. Yeah. I'm assuming that either Mike is listening very intently or he's actually frozen. So I'm thinking he's maybe frozen.
Should we we can just take a screenshot of him like this?
You should definitely. So last week my internet died and he spoke to me for a good 5 minutes after I'd left. So yeah.
He's really stuck.
He's really, really stuck.
At least he looks interested. At least it wasn't like
that.
Did this like you
It was going to happen. It was going to happen.
I was just saying, last week when you thought you were still talking to me and my internet just frozen, I'd actually left and gone for a pee, and you were just you're still chatting away to me.
Can I just say, guys,
this
is really delicious. This bottle is not going to last long.
This is something you can still buy, or was this like a limited release? I don't know if I know enough about this.
I mean, I would assume it's limited to a certain extent. I mean, you're always going to say limited edition because it's never going to last forever. But there's not a number on the bottle, put it that way. But I mean, for a blend, I mean, it's one of the best blends I've tried in ages. It's absolutely delicious. But also, it's also bottled at 48.5%, so it's got some good weight to it as well. You know what I mean? So, but honestly, it is incredible. I mean, if all blends go this way, we're in a good situation.
I'll have to look out for it. I'm enjoying my little brown dog. I don't know if you come across these guys, the little brown dog guys, but this is lovely. Mike, you must have had this as well. Oh, I think he's frozen.
I tried it. I don't have a bottle. It's one of the few little brown dogs that I haven't bought. There's two. One is that one, and the other one is the Macallan. The Secret Space Side.
It's not Macallan. It's the Tesco Value one, the undisclosed.
It's the Value one, yeah. And that's the only two I haven't bought. But I love the guys.
Is like a first fill sherry cask cat? It looks pretty heavy.
I don't know does it say on it, Mike, what it is? It's very sweet. It's a refill sherry.
Refill sherry.
I don't usually like sherry that much, but
I might be wrong. But I think they do the wee mongrel, which is kind of their 19 and 20-year-old Edrington blends. And I think that was one of the casks that they used for that blend. So it's they bought the cask fresh for the wee mongrel, and then they've used that. I think that's the story behind the cask.
Okay.
What are you guys getting asked for a lot in the shop? I mean, I know you said everyone always says malt, but is it still people coming in with that sort of brand knowledge of like, well, I know Macallan's good. I've heard of Glenlivet, or are people's repertoires in their heads a bit more varied now when they come and asking for brands?
We have a big local community. A lot of people want to buy something that's from the area. So
Can you
of course
think of any good quality local whiskies, Mike?
we put it towards Glendronach, like as often as we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the local ones are ones that people are looking for. That's kind of the big trend for a lot of guys coming in. We're not in a tourist area where we're a lot of people, let's say, are coming in buying for presents and stuff, or if they are kind of visiting, they're wanting something local to take home. We have a small world whiskey collection, and it's a hard sell. That's the toughest market for us, is pushing non-Scotch.
Because last time I was in the shop, you guys had a nice little Stowning display in the middle.
Yeah.
I've got my friends. They've just started an indie bottler in London called the Heart Cup.
Oh yeah.
And this is a Stowning bottling. This was one of their first ones, which is pretty delicious as well. And yeah, I think World Whiskies is like, obviously we're going to be talking a lot about that Whisky Talks Edinburgh.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. I think the knowledge and awareness of World Whiskies, I mean, the flavor profiles are massively different for the most part, but they have that ability to play around a lot more versus Scottish whiskey. So they have that sort of forward-thinking ability to go, actually, we could kind of use any cask we want to. We could season any cask how we want to, because we don't have an SWA style situation.
We've got the Macmira. You got a lot like the UK.
Oh,
Macmira
is so good.
Luftstellengrut. Is it?
Yeah. That's exactly how not to pronounce it. That's like say Glengarioch. Yeah.
Glengarioch.
Yeah. The Luftstellengrut. Yeah.
That's the one.
So yeah, we got you talk about buying casks, and we took on the UK exclusive for Macmira's Luftstellengrut series, the warehouse series. So we became the UK's only supplier of it, and it's a phenomenal whiskey.
Yeah.
But try telling people who love Macallan or Glenfiddich or Glenlivet, go and take a punt on this, and let me know what you think. And as soon as they say Swedish, no, doing it blind is great fun, because and what I love about them as well, you say it's slightly smoky, but it's not peaty, because they use the burnt juniper bush to smoke the whiskey. It gives us really nice sweet smoke to it. But yeah, it's just try to get that people into that mindset. It's getting easier. It's getting better for people to try something different.
Yeah, my one of my favorite lockdown whiskies was a Macmira from Milroy's in London, and it was a cloudberry wine cask. And to this day, I still don't know what the hell a cloudberry is, but it was bloody delicious. I'll tell you what.
They had something similar at the Whiskey Festival, Whiskey Mash, not last year, the year before. And I did look up cloudberry, and I think we have it, but we call it something else.
Yeah,
but yeah,
it's probably similar to like elderflower or something like that. I mean, is
it not lingonberry?
I think it could be
lingonberry. Yeah.
I think it's lingonberry.
But it was so delicious, and it was like it was a summer whiskey through and through. So yeah, the Macmira guys definitely putting out some amazing whiskies. And the other one I really liked of theirs was the Gronte, which was the green tea cask.
Oh wow!
Okay,
I've tried that one.
Do you think, looking forward, you mentioned there that a lot of these new countries new whiskey countries are quite progressive and forward-looking. Is Scotch in danger of being left behind, or is it that tradition that keeps us head and shoulders above everyone else?
I mean, the thing, I don't think so. I think Scotland will always be safe as a whiskey making country. I mean, largely in part to the tourism side of things. Like, we're always going to have and I've seen amount of people coming to Scotland to come and like support all the distilleries and visit. We're always going to have demand for blends in other countries. I think blends will always save Scottish whiskey. If single malts took a hit, blends would still keep us going.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think we're always going to get innovation cues from other countries. I think that's what's going to be interesting is that, you know, when I was at Dewars, we did the first ever Scottish whiskey finished in mezcal casks.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless, you know, of I mean, it was one of those Marmite whiskeys where some people absolutely loved it and some people didn't. I thought it was amazing. It's like, because some of the flavors you could get in it were like things you'd never normally find in Scottish whiskey, like a really earthy green pepper note, like just wasn't present in any Scottish whiskeys I've tried. So you're always going to get those cues from different countries, not even just from whiskey, but from like things like tequila, mezcal, and different liqueurs and spirits. But I think the SWA will always keep regulations pretty tight in terms of, you know, the style of oak casks we can use and what you can season with.
Don't we kind of need that to make us stand out from, like, give us a sort of our kind of, I don't know, our protected status almost? Like, you know, we've got these kind of rules that we stick to. It kind of keeps us as the origin story, if you like, and then everything else all around about us.
Totally, so and things will change, but yeah, no, you're right, Kat. I mean, I think one of the things we'll probably see a lot more of in, say, like 50 years or longer is Scottish oak coming more into Scottish whiskey as well, because we're obviously heavily reliant on American whiskey for all the American oak casks we get. But I think Scottish oak will really become more prevalent in the future. I mean, it's a much different flavor profile, you know, and structure of the wood, like the sort of lactones and wood sugars you get from Scottish oak. Mm-hmm. But if it's almost like winning people onto a new style. Like if you think about what Scottish whiskies would have tasted like in the 1800s versus what we're drinking now, they are like chalk and cheese, because everything in the 1800s was peat and sherry, because every distillery was burning peat. Everyone was using sherry casks. Like American oak didn't come on the scene until the 1920s. So it could be in 100 years we're just having Scottish oak and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It is all kind of trends and fashions as well, a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah. And also economical.
Sorry, say again?
And economical circumstances.
That's true. I mean, Scottish oak's not going to be cheap, is it? I also think we're going to need a few more forests planted before we see Scottish oak on a large scale anyway.
Yeah. I mean, what do you guys think about, you know, peat in terms of how much we use it in Scotland, how much distilleries rely on it in the West Coast or, you know, scattered around Scotland? You know, are we ever going to get that stage where peat becomes like a total no-no? It's going to be heavily reduced. Are we going to look to your point, Mike, burning different things like, you know, juniper, heather, moss?
I'd say it's. I think if you speak to the people, probably more in the know than us, there's enough peat. And we use less than 2% of all peat in Scotland is used by the whiskey industry. But I think we're in the spotlight for using peat, and that's why we're kind of targeted a little bit. Or let's say but the distillers. It's tough, and I think there's always a duty of care. There's that obligation for the industry to say, well, we are responsible, we're using less. And I know kind of malting factories like Crisp and all that are blending down unpeated barley with peated barley rather than doing purely peated runs to kind of make it more efficient and make it more sustainable. I think of all the guys who are using peat, because the industry is in the spotlight, they're very savvy on it, and they're doing a good job of restoration and where they're cutting the peat from, and we're doing all right, I think, as far as I know.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of peatland restoration happening, so I think we are aware as an industry that it's important to sequester carbon, but it's not so much the using of the peat, it's the digging into the peat that's the problem, because you're opening up the peat bogs, which is leaching out the carbon. As soon as you're fixing that hole, you're actually fixing the problem you've created. Peat takes a long time to grow, but as soon as you repair what you've taken out. It's a self-healing process. So it's always going to start restoring itself. So it's not that we're overusing, it's just that we need to do it a bit more responsibly and almost fix what we've taken out. So I think it is a self-healing process if we are careful with it.
Yeah, because it's like a centimetre every 10 years, isn't it, for peat?
Yeah, a metre of peat's 1,000 years in growth. But as soon as you actually start, so a lot of them use like coir from like coconuts, like coconut production. They make coir mats and kind of pin it back into the peat bog, and then the water holds it in, and then the moss starts to grow again, and that brings out the wildlife. So it is a continually self-healing process. So I think as an industry, we are definitely not.
I always take great pleasure in telling people when they've had like a peated whiskey, there's like a high probability there's like some sort of animal that passed away as part of your probably some dinosaur in your whiskey, yeah, for sure.
More likely it would be an old dead yow somewhere, to be honest, than a dinosaur.
I've seen some yows. I've seen some yows that look like a dinosaur. Especially the ones that are saved.
Do you know, it's always those ones that never die. It's always the old cronky, like top in the field. Top's a ram for the non-Aberdeenshire folk. The ones that look like it should have died 10 years ago, that you can't believe it's still creating lambs and still hasn't died. You're like, one more winter's going to get you, you bastard. And it never does.
Stubborn yow.
Just for anyone listening who's not from Scotland, a yow is a sheep, just if they hadn't picked up on that.
There's certain things that I can't say without thinking it sounds weird. One is potato, one is turnip, and one is sheep or lady sheep.
Do you know one of my most unfortunate childhood accidents? Because we grew up working on a farm down near Forres, and one of my most unfortunate childhood accidents was I actually fell into a vat of sheep dip.
No.
So some of those sheep dips they used back in the 80s, some of them had a chemical profile which actually would like totally screw up your nervous system.
God.
Yes. I think I'm fine though. I think I'm fine.
Do you know what? You'll probably live to like 150.
Yeah. Oh, I tell you what, I didn't get any ticks that summer at all.
That's funny. There's a guy, and I don't know if you guys watch or listen to a podcast called "No Such Thing as a Fish." Did you ever listen to that?
No.
It's a fact based, and it's the writers of QI, the TV show, and they get together to do a podcast about random facts. And just to go back to your sheep dip story, I was listening to it yesterday morning, and there's a guy called Martin Baker who was an ejector seat tester, and he got flung out of like every ejector seat ever in the world, but he refused to get tested over water. And the reason for it was, as a child, he fell into a vat of sheep dip and traumatized him so much he thought he was going to drown that he just simply refused to get. And a lot of the ejector seat tests was done over water to see how they would impact, obviously. So, but
it's mentally, it's fun. It's funny which childhood traumas come back to haunt you eventually. Eh?
Yeah. I mean, this guy was getting shot at like stupid amounts of miles an hour, and and testing crash helmets as well. He tested pilot helmets and all this kind of stuff, but he was like, "Put me over water and I'm out. I'm walking away."
Like, when you go to a job interview and they say at the end, "Any questions?" I feel like he maybe should have had some questions before he took that job. Yeah.
I've just had a bottle call, Fraser, of one of the great Dewar blends. Albert although that's a 16-year-old.
The 16. Is that the because they changed it over from Oloroso to Madeira. So is that the Oloroso or the Madeira? Do you know?
This is the Oloroso. This was the previous incarnation. Yeah.
So that range launched. That particular design done by Stranger & Stranger, that was launched after 2014, and that sort of is. I mean, because Aberfeldy had always been around on and off over the years as a single malt bottling. I mean, I when I was in Australia, we had it on the back bar, the 12, the 16, the 21. But I think that redesign just fits it so perfectly. Like, I love what Stranger and Stranger do, and I actually worked with them a lot when I was at Dewars, and they are absolutely amazing at package design. It just looks so good. But Aberfeldy will always be my whiskey I recommend to people who've never tried whiskey before.
Yeah. I would agree. It's such a nice kind of. There's a real nice kind of fruitiness, that pear drop, sweety kind of vibe to it. It's such a good dram.
Honey and honey, like orange peel. It's like if that was a breakfast cereal, it'd be crunchy nut cornflakes.
Nice. It's one of my brother's favorite whiskeys as well. I always get him a bottle for his Christmas.
So good.
If you never tried crunching up cornflakes, guys, buy standard cornflakes and just pour some of this over it.
Pour some whiskey. Hashtag responsible drinking.
Yeah.
Don't try that. Do it on a day off.
Yeah. But no, Aberfeldy is, that'll always be a favorite. And yeah, it's such a good way to get a whiskey if you've never tried a single malt.
We had Matthew up doing a tasting with us. Must have been 2022. And I think the biggest feedback was, why is everything 40%? Because I think there's such a good liquid there that they could play with a little bit higher. If I remember right, his reply was, watch the space. But I haven't seen anything jumping out from that. So.
Yeah, because with Altmore and Craig Elke, they're both bottled at 46%. I think it's definitely probably a supply thing for blends. I mean, I'd be speculating there, but yeah, I mean, we did used to get that question a lot. But I mean, I think obviously Stephanie, who I noticed you had on the show quite recently as well, actually.
Yeah.
Clearly when it comes to the different malts under the Bacardi umbrella, Craig Elke at 46 is perfect. Altmore is perfect at 46. Brackla and Aberfeldy and Devon at 40% really work as well. So, but yeah, I think if you want to try Aberfeldy a little bit more punchy, just look out for the exceptional casks, which are always amazing.
I just suddenly remembered when we had Stephanie on, I bought a bottle of Royal Brackla. I thought, ooh, I want to be on brand because I was super excited. I was totally fangirled over it. I think I played it cool.
You did. you did. You were all right, actually. You managed to hold the excitement.
Anyway, but it didn't arrive in time. Stupid every delivery courier service and every shite. But it finally turned up. So just in time for you.
Today.
No, it didn't turn up today. But no, it turned up like a month afterwards.
James E.D. Aberfeldy?
No, it's not. It's the Royal Brackla one.
Oh, the Brackla. Oh, Brackla, yeah. So, because prior to 2014, a lot of Bracklas would have been indie bottlings anyway. But what a great distillery! I'm actually hosting a group there on Monday.
Nice.
I still get calls occasionally from the Bacardi team to come and host. So I'm looking after some people at Brackla on Monday for an hour or so just to show them around. But it's such a beautiful distillery. Like the view from the still house is one of the best in Scotland.
Do you know? I don't think I've ever actually driven past it.
No, you wouldn't have done it. It's down like a side road. It's quite hard to drive past. If you're going from Inverness to like Elgin, you'd have to literally go and find it.
Okay. Because it's on Cawdor Estate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Me and my wife a couple of years ago went into Cawdor Castle and did the tour. And I did kind of say we're really close to Brackla. Do you want to go and have a look?
Yeah.
But that fell on deaf ears, unfortunately.
Yeah. They need a visitor center. Like we spoke about it for a long time. I don't know what's happening with it now, but we spoke a long time about doing something there because there was quite a few of the old warehouses vacant, but needing a lot of work done that could have easily been turned into a really nice little visitor center. So I'm sure it'll happen eventually. But yeah, it's a beautiful site. Do you guys have any like sort of, I guess, like mothball distilleries you're excited about? Have you like been up to Brora? Have you been up since it reopened?
No.
No, I'm really excited about Dallas Dew.
Yeah.
And, what's
That's what I was
happening
looking
there?
up. My favorite mothball distillery of all time. That was my 40th birthday present to myself when I was in London. I bought a bottle of the 1982 Dallas Dew because I think it shot in 1983, and obviously, I'd grown up in Forres and used to cycle past it a lot as well. So like Dallas Dew was so. It was a bit like Craig Elkie, had that sort of like tropical, almost sulfury kind of vibe to it, but it was absolutely beautiful. It was like, it was absolutely incredible. So it'd be interesting to see what Murray McDavid do with that.
Yeah, I was speaking to the rep today about it, and he's saying they're pretty excited about it. It's just a case of getting everything going. I think the only work they have to do at the distillery is in the tasting room shop kind of thing. Everything else is ready to pretty much go.
So they got a date that they're looking to.
Never gave us a date, and I guess it's probably not a place to say it on a on a shop.
I wouldn't have got to give away secret. I mean, there's things out there.
But I'm really, like yourself, Fraser, I got excited. I was born in '83, so that was. I know a lot of distilleries closed in '83, but that was one that probably the first kind of collector's bottle that I started to look out for and kind of bought religiously every year. I'd buy a Dallas Dew, and I just like it. And I've had the Roderick Dew blend. God, try to say that. Roderick Dew blend. it's and going back to your blends, that's a cracking wee dram, that one.
Yeah. So have you actually opened any of the Dallas Dew bottles then? Have you tried it?
I haven't opened any of mine, but I've tried it in a few bars that have had it. I
think
I remember. I understand the Craig Elkie like that. I
remember polishing off a bottle because actually the first time I tried it was at the Quake bar in Craig Elkie, and I think it was with Dave Broom was definitely at the bar there, and someone else was there. It might have been during Spirit of Speyside, like about 7 years ago. But we definitely polished off the bottle that night, and it was not a cheap dram. But it was absolutely stunning.
Yeah. Because Gordon MacPhail did a couple of bottlings of it as well.
Yeah.
Which were fantastic in '83 and in '84. The two of the ones that. But I'm really excited about that. And there's quite a few. Rose Isle, Rosebank, Port Ellen, Brora. There's a lot of these guys getting.
Port Ellen's soon, isn't it? Is it not? Is it start of March? Is it opening? Was there not something on Instagram the other day? Or am I making that up?
They've just announced the launch of a 44-year-old.
Is that what I'm thinking of? That must be it.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how it because a lot of these distilleries were closed for a reason, and it was one of the reasons was the whiskey wasn't really that good as a single malt.
Yeah, but they have a cult following, which has definitely propelled them.
Folklore and
Brora had a massive cult following. But they because like every mothball distillery and a lot of distilleries as well almost have like their eras, like a specific decade which people look out for because something changed in the process.
Yeah.
So I think with Brora, somewhere in 1980, did they reduce their peat slightly, or something happened between 1980 before they shut? Because they shut in '83. And so everyone looks out for the 70s Broras as a result because they taste better.
Okay.
Yeah, so before Glengarry shut in 68, they'd been looking to trial a heavily peated malt at Glengarry when they were owned by DCL. And then they decided there wasn't enough mortar at Glengarry, so they shut us and started doing it at Brora. And then I think they reduced the ppm a little bit and then they shut them. So yeah, it's all linked in there somehow. But yeah, it'll be exciting to see what happens up there. It looks beautiful from outside anyway. It's got like that. It's not like a big fancy gate, entrance.
It's like the gate in Willy Wonka, with Gene.
It's like that.
And
oh my god! See if we found out that they're just restored the liquid by employing Oompa Loompas. It would be the very best story.
Although the new Oompa Loompas like. What's his face?
Hugh Grant.
So yeah, it's not the traditional Oompa Loompa.
Do you know some Sometimes you look at somebody and you think, wow, how the mighty have fallen. He's literally
Hugh
gone to
Grant
Bridget
and Oompa
Jones.
Loompa in the new Wonka film, is he?
Yeah, Hugh
Yeah,
Grant's
I've not seen it, but he's basically, it's just his head on like a, or they've done like a sort of Lord of the Rings and just shrunk him down.
yeah.
I don't think he's that short in real life anyway.
Oh dear me! Is there anything? I'm actually beginning to like Hugh Grant. I used to hate him because he just played the same person all the time. But I
Did
love
you see
the
him in
fact
the Gentleman?
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
First time he did play Hugh Grant in a movie.
Yeah. And since that film, every time I see him, he's doing something completely different. I think he's just getting old and angry.
Doesn't care anymore.
He doesn't care anymore. Yeah.
He can't really play the
can't
romantic
play the
lead anymore,
heartthrob
can he?
Yeah, exactly. He's just like,
He's like the male version of like Miriam Margolyes, you know.
I love her. Can we get her in the Blether? That would be awesome. I don't even know if she drinks whiskey, but let's get her in the Blether. That would be fantastic.
Get her email address and throw requests at her every day. Do what the guy did in Shawshank Redemption. Just write a letter every day until he got what he wanted.
Well, Morgan Freeman.
No, the Andy Dufresne to get his library. He requested funds for his library and wrote a letter.
Oh right, I thought you meant you were going to ask. You were going to send a letter every day to Morgan Freeman to get him to come on.
I mean,
we get Morgan Freeman to ask Miriam, and then we'll just it'll all work out.
But one caveat: you have to get him to change his name to Morgan Free Drams.
Yes.
With all these celebrity drams going about, why has he not done that? Why is he not Free Dram?
I mean, that's a very good one actually. Oh, do you know one thing I'm absolutely raging about? Speaking of celebrity drams, I was just thinking of what's his name, Conor McGregor. He did his Irish whiskey.
Proper 12.
He and bloomin' Jake Gyllenhaal are remaking Roadhouse, which I'm absolutely raging about because that is like 80s gold, and they've gone and made a remake.
I mean,
this is where I start to tap out because my film knowledge is limited to children's films. So, like, yeah.
Roadhouse, not really a children's film, but
well, I'm trying to think what the Disney equivalent of Roadhouse would be.
I mean, I have kids. I'm not just a weirdo. I don't just only watch Disney films.
yeah, Cat Weber. What's the number one film in the house at the moment?
Oh, well, no, it's kind of like we've moved on now. So we're into like Transformers and Transformers is pretty much what we're into just
Transformers now. And Transformers.
Well, my eldest don't watch TV with me because, I'm boring. So it's just my youngest. Sometimes I make him pay attention to me. So I'll sit and watch Transformers for a bit. I'm only interested if it's got awful with people. No, I don't like him. The guy with the big arms that's into God and Guns. Mark Wall.
Oh, Mark Wahlberg.
Yes.
Marky Mark.
Yeah, just because his arms are literally the size of my torso. That's the only reason that I can tolerate Transformers. But
he was was it him that was in New Kids on the Block, or was it his brother? I think it was his brother.
I think it was his brother. Yeah.
Yeah.
New Kids on the Block would have a very different sound.
I don't know if you're old enough to remember them, Kat.
No.
You must know New Kids on the Block. Come on, you're not that much younger than me.
I don't know. Give me a song. Like, what did they do?
I can name you the songs. I'm not going to rap it or sing it because then I'll probably get booted. But it's Hanging Tough was probably one of the big ones.
Yeah.
I'll YouTube it later, and I will. I mean, there isn't much between us, Mike. We're only like I don't know, 6 years.
They were like the first American boy bands, like before Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. These guys were like the blueprint.
I know Backstreet Boys, but yeah.
If there was no New Kids on the Block, there wouldn't be Backstreet Boys.
And the world would be a sadder place for that.
It would be a better place for that, probably. Musical talent started to go down.
Okay, here's a question, right? If you could go back in time, would you only drink okay, if I gave you, say, right, you can have a case of Karasawa whiskey from Japan, free of charge, or you can only listen to music from the 90s, which would you pick?
I would go with 90s music, I think.
I'm trying to think of bands in the 90s that I like to see if I can like work the trade-off between the two.
It's underrated. I think 90s music is underrated. People scoff at it because of dicks like Boyzone and Spice Girls and stuff. But see, the indie scene was immense.
And things like Beastie Boys, like if you look at all this sort of early 90s stuff, like between pretty much like 1990 and 94, some of the best music ever came out in those 4 years.
Yeah. Do you know we've had this has been a pub debate with me and my friends for many a time, and I think there's a a kind of rolling thing that happens. You look at the 60s. 60s was phenomenal for music. Who was born in the 60s? You look at guys like Rick Astley, the Gallaghers, Damon Albarn and all that. They grew up listening to the Stones, the Beatles, this kind of stuff. So when they got old enough to kind of produce their own music, they did that. So kind of late 80s, 90s. And it happened again in kind of when we had Snow Patrol and Mumford & Sons and all this kind of stuff came out. 30 years after that, there's like a 30-year rolling trend of brilliant indie music comes out.
Do you think it's the same in whiskey as well then? Do you think we get the same trends like one generation inspires the next?
I think to a point, yeah. I would like to think there's some. You look at every new distillery now, and they're saying, "Oh, we're going to go back a generation to when whiskey was made." I don't think there's a 30-year rolling generation. It's maybe 50 or 60 years, but there's something there. Yeah,
I think we're definitely seeing a bit more now, aren't we? All the time.
Like the thing that whiskey and music have in common is politics, right? So both politics heavily influences both massively.
Yeah.
So if you look at like the 90s music scene, especially in the UK, a lot of that was born out of the fact that everyone in the UK in the 80s was really miserable with Thatcherism. 80s Britain was pretty
angry music scene, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, like the 70s had been amazing, and then you'd had like punk and stuff like that, and the 80s was electronic and synth and Depeche Mode and all that sort of stuff. But 80s music was kind of like a bit of a void, and then there wasn't really a movement in the 80s per se. Then like in the 90s, that's when politics and music was sort of moving at the same time. Like the Tories were on their way out, Labour was coming back in with false promises, obviously, but still like a bit of a rebellious nature. We haven't really had that in the UK in a long time. Like we haven't had like a musical rebellion. This sort of like, because the past like few years politically have been pretty depressing and dire. So it kind of makes me think: are we going to see like a next generation of musicians inspired by some of the horrific politicians we've had to subscribe to in the past like 5-6 years?
The thing, the problem is, as kind of Thatcher was who she was, she inspired a lot of people, love or hate, in whatever way. There's nobody like that now. There's no characters in politics now. They're all just kind of
maybe not. We've had some pretty epic kind of things happen around about us, from like wars to riots in Capitol Hill to the Black Rights Movement to like COVID. Surely that's going to inspire people, to create something a bit different. If it's not politics, it must be all the shit that's just happened to the last.
I mean, it's probably inspired a lot of people to drink whiskey.
Definitely.
Or just drink.
Yeah. But then again, on the flip side, the trend of non-drinking is obviously massive as well now, because I think in a lot of ways because people don't have control of so many aspects of their lives, especially things like politics and things like the economy. People are sort of reclaiming control of their health in a lot of ways, and I think the drinks industry and hospitality probably more so has taken a massive brunt of that. Like the amount of hospitality venues. I remember we've got a WhatsApp group of some pals in the industry. One of the guys said something like a figure like since the early 2000s, I think it was maybe 2003, 50% of wet-led venues in the UK have closed. 50%.
It's mad. It's a pub a day is closing.
Yeah.
That's really sad.
So for everyone listening, get out there. Now that damp January's out of the way, get out there and support your locals.
Yeah, and you know what? What the biggest margin a pub has is soft drinks. The biggest margin over alcohol is so yeah. You go out and buy a tin of Coke, buy a bottle of tonic water. It's a massive part of, and this non-alcoholic or low alcohol is becoming a massive thing, and a lot of people don't get it. I personally, do I get non-alcohol? I get the beer side of things because you want to be seen to be drinking a beer, but non-alcoholic gin. Yeah, just drink the tonic water.
The beers are top of the list. I think I saw someone shared a list the other day of like ratings of categories of non-alcoholic drinks. Beer's number one for sure. I mean, Heineken NA is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Guinness NAs are really good. There's probably a couple other ones in there as well. Spirits are bottom of the pile for me. I haven't tried anything convincing. Actually, no. The only one actually was, and this is not because I used to work at Bacardi, but Martini did a really good couple of non-alcoholic vermouths, Vibrante and I think it was Floreal. They were really good, but it's so hard to just get that weight and that texture and that flavor. Yeah. Like there's a reason why we drink alcohol, is because the flavor is inherent in that spirit and it's amplified in different ways, but the flavor is made during fermentation and distillation and maturation.
Yeah, I think on the flip side of that, the industry is realizing people are, and young people, I think 18 to 24-year-olds category are spending more on alcohol than they've ever done before, but they're drinking less volume.
Yeah.
So they're going out, maybe not going out, but they're buying drink to enjoy, and they're spending money on something that they want to sit and enjoy and nurture and get that flavor from, rather than just throwing it down. And again, Dave Harkison's just just asked about the price increase on the minimum pricing.
Yeah,
gone up to 65. It was 50p. And I think as a society in general, we're drinking better. We're enjoying what we're drinking rather than just going out and buying cheap stuff and getting smashed. I mean, that's always going to happen, and that's what this minimum pricing is geared towards stopping. That cheap 6% ciders or whatever. It's
yeah.
I mean, I think people are more educated and going the right way about it.
But what we're talking about is premiumization, and we've seen the bubble burst on that, last year in the US and Central America with when the Diageo share price literally just plummeted in a matter of days because people had stopped spending more money on better alcohol. They just stopped spending money they just gone back to cheap alcohol.
Yeah.
So I don't really know when that might happen in the UK or if it is going to happen. But I mean, judging by the amount of hospitality venues they're taking a battering, these things are usually in parity. So this is why, I think the whiskey trend will definitely veer towards blends, non-age statement, younger age statements. But then even saying that, we as we said at the start, a lot of younger age statements are still coming out quite highly priced.
Yeah.
And I
there's that danger of all these hospitality places closing down and people drinking at home. We could go full circle and go back to that danger where people are drinking unregulated, uncontrolled. There's not that kind of oversee, whether it's a barman, a doorman, or friends saying, I think you've had maybe too much, let's go get you home. People are drinking at home unsolicited, and we're just going to go full circle. We need that pubs, we need that bars to get people out and social.
I think it's a trend. I think it's a trend. It's basically we're in a trough. If you look at whiskey, look at the stock market, look at anything, it's always ups and downs. And things will always, nothing ever stays in a straight line.
Yeah.
It's always up and down, up and down, up and down. Like, so that is inescapable. Like, there's just no industry on earth which, is going to remain constant. There's always going to be a trend which knocks it out of sway. There's always going to be economic issues, political issues, global catastrophes. I mean, the pandemic really changed things around the world for a lot of people because it changed how people drank at home. People were drinking better at home, making cocktails at home, but also people thought about their mental health more, meaning that they started drinking less. So, I hate using the word unprecedented, but that's kind of what it was, right?
It was, yeah. Certainly since kind of the Spanish flu, or recordable aspect of what we've been through.
Yeah, we think about phylloxera, like how devastating to France was that for the best part of 2 decades or longer. Not only the physical quality of the grapes and the products, but the reputation.
Yeah, but how good was it for Scotch?
Amazing.
Did we not decide last week, Mike, that some Scottish person had cultivated beetles and sort of sent them like the sort of Wizard of Oz fly monkeys to go and attack all the vines?
Johnny Walker just cultivated this beetle and just said, on you go. Go to France.
Wow.
Fly, my little monkeys, fly.
Germination warfare might be the next thing, right?
It's like, it's not chemical warfare, it's beetle warfare. We've got questions coming in. We're getting sidetracked by politics. Annette has asked if you could have one last dram before not being able to drink for a year, what would it be?
Oof.
And before we answer, good evening, Charlie. Nice to have you on.
I need some time. I think you guys are going to have to go first.
I mean, I'm going to counter the argument and say if I could have one last dram, I would choose not to have that and drink for the year. If I was only allowed one last dram before not
this
being able to...
This is the thing. Here's my reverse psychology on this situation. Surely you'd want to make it a really terrible whiskey so you don't miss it.
Something to put you off.
Have a really average whiskey so you go, actually, it's kind of like easing out instead of just jumping off a cliff.
Something like a Loch Dew or something like that.
Yeah. I remember trying to figure out what the worst whiskey in the world was, like just based on internet reviews, and I'm pretty sure I found it. It was like, what was it called? It was like something red. I think it was made for the Indian market, and it was like something red or something. But it had some of the funniest and worst reviews I've ever read for any whiskey ever. Really? So if I was going to sign out and never drink whiskey again, I would just maybe I don't know. If it was going to be a good whiskey, well, 50-50. I mean, if I could choose any whiskey in the world, maybe it would be a Dallas Dew.
Mm-hmm.
But like a 1981, and then alternatively, maybe a Craig Ellicky 31-year-old.
Yeah, that would be good. So with Charlie at home, she would have the Glenfarclas Family Cask 1953.
Oh,
that would be good. And I was lucky enough to get invited round to Gordon MacPhail and was offered a 1954 Glen Grant. We tasted that, and that was sublime. I get asked the question a lot of what whiskey stands out for me. And Morrison Mackay, when it was Morrison Mackay, did one of their Black Golds release was Colila. I'm sure it was 1988 Colila, and it was just like drinking a fruit pastel. It's phenomenal.
That's a good tasting note. That's a good tasting note.
So that one, because I dare say I'll never get to try it again. And that's one that sticks out for me. Probably, I would say probably that one. Kat's ducked out of the question pretty severely. She didn't even hang around to say no. She just disappeared.
I know. I was going to say she's probably going off to watch Transformers.
Get her Mark Wahlberg fix.
But so yeah, Glenfarclas. I have good memory drinking Glenfarclas. Well, it's kind of a funny memory of drinking Glenfarclas 25-year-old. I just finished doing this. This was a couple of years ago, but I'd finished doing a pretty hefty charity walk for MS, and it was basically walking the length of the country. And I got to Land's End, and a pal of mine, Craig Harper, who works for Fever Tree, he was there at the end with a bottle of Glenfarclas 25-year-old. So we kind of pitched tent and camped out and had a few drams, went to the pub, had a few Guinness, had a few more drams, came back. And we pitched tent. Yeah, we pitched tent when we got back because we were pretty hammered and it was dark. And I just remember we're sitting there drinking Glenfarclas 25 out of like a McDonald's cup because that's all we had at the time. And this guy in the tent next to us was like kind of annoyed with how verbose we were being as we were setting up the tent. And he actually accused us of being in the CIA. And it was like, okay. And then as the night went on, like we were obviously just trying to be quiet and stuff. But he's like, "You've put a microphone in my tent, haven't you? You're like CIA." And me and Craig were just like, "Fuck is this guy doing?" So we're just drinking our Glenfarclas 25, trying to be really quiet, setting up a tent while a guy next door is accusing us of being spies.
When you just in a really good story, you're like, "Oh, I missed that."
We thought you'd left to go and watch Mark Wahlberg and Transformers.
It was tempting. Bloody internet.
Kat, have you ever been accused of being a spy?
No. I'm the sort of person that I wouldn't get away with being a spy. I don't have a spy look, really, to be honest, do I?
You just walk into it and say, "I'm a spy."
That's exactly what a spy would say, though.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. That is true. I mean, I do have an air of mystery about me, so you never know. No.
Yeah, I mean, like, what exactly did you disappear to go and do just now?
Well, I could tell you.
Intercepting messages between different warring countries, or yeah.
That's what it is, yeah. I mean, yeah, taking messages from my alien overlords and sorting down the Transformers.
If an alien arrived on Earth and you could only give them one whiskey, what would it be to represent the entire planet?
Don't even get me started on how much I hate aliens. Like, what I would give that alien is a good old punch in the face, because I find aliens to be the rudest people ever. You can't just turn up your spaceship and steal people because you've got better shit. That's just so rude. So
what if they're here already? I mean, like, octopuses kind of look like aliens, or octopi. So
have you seen the video of the octopus just like backhanding the fish because it was just in its way? That's the sort of animal that's on my level. I don't think it could be an alien. What dram would I give an alien?
This is one of the best questions I think we've ever had.
It would have to be like a proper like entry level one, because you're trying to explain what whiskey is. Like, this is something that's come from like another planet.
But it would make or break whether they'd stay on the planet or not. They're literally like, I'm going to try this, and if it's not up to par, I'll either leave and never come back, or I'll destroy the planet because you've pissed me off so much with your shit dram.
This is exactly. So this is why I don't like aliens, because we're dealing with that level of hostility.
So we have to find out what budget was, what kind of whiskey it likes. Sherry cans, or does it have a mouth? Does it have a nose? So many questions.
You know,
tentacles.
Yeah, like you have to like pour a single bottle into every single sucker on its tentacles, so it's going to be an expensive round.
It'd be like just a sort of rotating alien octave, like octave. I'm trying to think of what the things are in bars.
Oh,
I'm getting octopus and octave. I don't know. But
You could give it a ball of octave, and then that would solve that problem. So
that's true, actually. Yeah. So if we are invaded by octopus aliens, we've got a plan, guys. You're safe. Don't worry. We're on it. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm actually still giving it thought about what I would give an alien. It's not even that I find this conversation weird. I've just thinking about it too much.
Serious question.
What?
I don't know if this is a compliment, Kat, but Charlie thinks that you could be friends. You could be quite good friends, actually.
We are friends, Charlie.
Charlie, I thought I knew you, but with that quote alone, I think you're a completely different person to the person I think you are.
Dave Fackerson, you are hurting my heart. Lefroy would not piss them off. Rude. Not at all. I thought me and you were friends, Dave. I'm gonna think twice the next time you come into the shop. Did you decide on what would your last dram be before? What was it before you died?
You thought that's why you left, because the question was so hard for you. You just thought, I'm out.
That was my get out clause, and I fucked it.
Yeah. What would be the last dram you'd have before an alien abducted you and took you to another planet? I think I said, either a Dallas or a Craig Ellicky 31-year-old, because that was one of the best drams I ever tried when I was at Bacardi, certainly. Actually, the other one which Stephanie concocted, which honestly hands down amazing, was the Dewars double 32-year-old, which was finished in PX casks. Because I am a sucker for PX, but I had quite a bit of peat on it as well, and for me it was just like perfection. So I've got a little bit left in the bottle, but it's a very rainy day. In fact, it's probably an apocalypse dram.
Like if an alien turned up.
Exactly. Or it was your last ever dram for a year. So yeah.
Oh well, I'm still trying to find my way.
1988 single cask Colila from Morris Mackay.
Ooh,
which I talk about quite a lot.
You guys have got some interesting ones. I haven't really tried enough whiskey to have like a proper standout one. I'd probably just be like, I don't know.
12-year-old Glengarry.
What about a dram that you haven't tried that is like top of your list for trying? Like, because like a no holds barred, like you've heard nothing but how it's like a unicorn and it's like gold dust.
I'm trying to think.
I would love to try something like one of the proper old school Macallan, the replica or something like that. Just
when it was made with Golden Promise.
Yeah, just something when it was, what made Macallan, and what they're still kind of living off today. Something like that. And if I could squeeze in two, I'd have one from back in the day and one from now. That's, maybe something like the Reach or something like that. Just to see, is it up to the hype? Is it worth? That's probably what I would go with.
Yeah, I think it is kind of tried to say, but it is always like kind of where you are, and kind of here with that time you're having the dram. I mean, I've tried some like really old, 50-year-old whiskey and kind of been left quite disappointed because I was drinking it by myself in lockdown. I've been sent like a little sample bottle or something like that. But I've tried like an 8-year-old whiskey in good company and remembered great things about that whiskey because of who I was with and where I was. So, and also your memory's totally unreliable, especially when it comes to whiskey. So your perception or memory of a dram you had like 10 years ago, it's probably not exactly what you thought it was. But
I think you're right, because quite often you just remember the time, like the people you're with and like the situation you were in and like how much fun it was. It's not really the drama you're remembering, it's that actual situation. And the drama just kind of heightened it and made it better.
Yeah. But you'll remember the brand, you'll remember the name, and you'll think, I had such a good time drinking that whiskey.
And do you know why? And for that reason, Craig Elkie, 31-year-old, sticks out in my mind is because, and this is late night confession time, I remember it was during Edinburgh Oh, it was Tales. It was an event called Tales of the Cocktail on Tour, based on the New Orleans one. It came to Edinburgh for like 2 days. This was back in like 2017, and Craig Elkie 31 had just won the award for world's best whiskey, and we had a bottle with us. We went to Garibaldi's in Edinburgh, the little Mexican nightclub, and we were drinking Craigie 31 straight out of the bottle, hanging off of a stripper's pole in the nightclub. Well, I say stripper's pole, it's like a dancing pole. We were literally hanging off it, drinking it straight out of the bottle. And that's an amazing...
Were you fully clothed?
Eh?
Were you fully clothed?
I don't remember. No, I was, because I have photos. I have this amazing photo. It was like there was four of us there, and I still have the photo somewhere on Facebook. It was like one of those, like, everyone looked down on the camera and the bottle's in the picture. So maybe the reason I love that drink so much is just because of that night in Garibaldi's. Not because it was the world's best whiskey, but
yeah,
just because we were hanging off of a dancing pole in a Mexican nightclub.
It's brilliant, and I always tell people, you look at something like the Glenfiddich 12-year-old, brilliant whiskey, but people forget how good it is because they don't drink it, and they're like, I can buy that any time. And it's always in the pub, it's always in the local, it's at every bar you go all around the world, and you forget how good a whiskey is.
Yeah.
So just go back. Next time you're in a pub and you fancy a whiskey, buy it and just remind yourself, because nostalgia is a funny thing. A lot of people think, it can't be that good because it's mass produced. But when was the last time you tried it? Macallan 10, best whiskey in the world for many, many people, because it was the last time they had an affordable Macallan that they could say, well, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Memories are funny things. And I was reading up about memories, and there's something psychological about it. Is the mood that you're in when you think about that memory plays about 60 or 70% part in how you remember that memory, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you're in a good mood when you remember something, then you'll remember that fondly. If you're in a bad mood when you remember, then that memory that could have been a good memory from your childhood becomes a bad memory.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, sense of smell. Like, sense of smell is the biggest part, like the most powerful trigger to our memories. You guys obviously know, working in whiskey. So sometimes if you're smelling a whiskey and it reminds you of another memory, is it like the whiskey memory you're remembering, or is it the initial memory you're remembering?
Yeah.
It's like a merging of the two, because you're like, oh, this reminds me of when I used to just go and have, rhubarb crumble at my granny's house. So when you're having that whiskey for the first time, are you remembering trying the whiskey? You're remembering the initial memory. So,
and is that a good memory or not?
Is that a cacophony of memories you're having at the same time? But yeah.
How many people don't drink whiskey because they have that one memory of drinking too much whiskey, and it just reminds them of spewing? I hear that all the time.
That was me for 10 years.
Yeah.
And how many people is that one whiskey Lefroy?
Well, clearly, Dave.
Honestly, the amount of people coming at the shop and are, oh no, I drank Lefroy when I was 15. I stole it out of my dad's cabinet and I can't touch whiskey since. It's just, no matter what whiskey you give them, they smell Lefroy, and it's just like, no, just can't do it.
Yeah.
It's like a rite of passage for some people, isn't it? Oh, you've got to try Lefroy. You're like, you're near a mile unless you try Lefroy. But I don't know. It's just you got to work.
It's a great watershed whiskey. It's like, there's a tipping point for a lot of people, and I often find it's Lefroy. You get people come in the shop and they're like, I've never tried whiskey before, and you can go two ways depending on how nice they are and how polite they are. You can say, well, let's start you with something like an Aberfeldy. Let's start you gentle. Let's get you in. And if they're a bit bullish about it, a bit of a dick about it, you say, well, here's a Lefroy. Try that. You can say there's two ways. That can be like, wow, that's amazing. I love this whiskey. Right? You've opened up Isla. You've opened up that coastal. And then if they hate it, you can turn around and say, well, every other whiskey is going to be amazing compared to that. So we can backtrack and say, try this one. It's going to be so much softer or whatever.
Yeah. Do you know what Lefroy did amazingly well? And honestly, I think it's one of the best whiskey adverts I've ever seen. they literally did a bit of a Marmite challenge advert. So if you look at, I think it's called Lafroig Opinions, and it's literally a series of people from all walks of life being given Lafroig for the first time, and it's just their honest opinions. Like, this tastes like a shoe that's been set on fire, or this tastes, like seaweed covered in honey, or whatever it might be.
Slapped in the face by a kipper or things like that.
Yeah, or being abducted by an octopus from outer space.
By being attacked by an octopus alien. My favorite one's being French kissed by a drunk mermaid. So that's up on their wall, because they took all those and put them on the wall at the distillery.
It's a bit, but I think they embrace that. They know that they're loved by enough people. They don't have to worry about the people that don't love them.
Yeah. And the people who love it absolutely love it.
Oh, 100%. And it is one of those cult distilleries with massive following, and I think in a lot of ways as well, the real peat fiends are probably largely responsible for the resurgence of whiskey. Back in the 90s and the early 90s, they were really, those fan clubs and those sort of groups of people really what's the term, fanboying, fangirling over whiskey, of like mothballed nature or heavily peated. Those were the people that really got whiskey into like internet chat rooms, and then slowly and surely online, and the whiskey clubs. It's brands like Lafroig really kind of helped with that. But obviously, from a commercial point of view, Diageo doing things like the classic malts and whiskey writers like Michael Jackson, and
There'll definitely always be a place for things like that out there. But as you say, I think those people help the super fans. Like things like Highland Park, they've got that really committed fan club, don't they? And people get tattoos.
Gorgeous. Friendship group, or Friends of Lafroig, isn't it?
Friends of Lafroig, yeah.
You can
Phage Isle as
buy a whiskey, you can get a square meter of peat bog or something.
You do. You get a leaf flag to put on it.
Get a square peat bog and a Tesco shopping bag to take home. But Phage Isle as well, like festivals, I only went for the first time last year. There was a group of us that went out, Gomez and a few other folk as well. Ian Melville from Base Spirits. Like, we had a really good squad of people. Went out to Isla for Phage last year. I'd never been before, and it was amazing. And there's like a ridiculous side of that, which is queues of 200 people trying to buy the limited Phage Isle bottlings. But the festival community side of it, the pubs, and I think Isla's one of those places which really has helped whiskey, but also suffers from its popularity as well, because the infrastructure is not built to cope with the amount of people that want to go there.
I think they made a conscious effort last year of because Phage wasn't a whiskey festival, it was an Isla festival, and you're looking at the culture, the people, the birds, the nature, and that kind of thing, and whiskey kind of not jumped in the bandwagon, but it grew and grew as the popularity of whiskey grew. I think last year was the first time in a long time that I actually made a conscious effort of saying, look, this is not a whiskey festival. This is an Isla festival. We want to celebrate the music and the people and that again. It must be hard for the organisers to kind of balance that, making sure it's enough people get a little slice of that tourism pie. Like, go and see the bands. Go and listen. Go down to the beach and listen to the local guys tell stories. It can't all be about the whiskey. There has to be an island culture there. Yeah,
because actually the fun part was like hanging out at the campsites and walking between the distilleries. You make your own little stories and adventures around all the distillery parties and festivals as well. I mean, the Brewer Clady Day on the Sunday was amazing, and I tried some of the best oysters I've ever tried. But you'll always remember like who you were there with. Like we still have our WhatsApp group from like May, June last year, still sending like messages, based on that one weekend. So so I don't really remember what whiskey I drank. I remember the distilleries I went to. I remember who I was there with more than anything else. But like that's what whiskey's always done, is brought people together, and that's I think overlooked when it comes to the marketing of whiskey. occasionally, and unfortunately, the way hospitality has been, scapegoated, during COVID and sort of fallen victim to people not drinking as much. I mean, people will quickly remember why pubs and bars are so important for whiskey and enjoyment, because that's really where the best memories come from.
Yeah. It's that is we say so often on this chat, no matter who the guest is, that the people are the ones that make it, and there's no other spirit has that connection globally.
No,
and it
definitely not.
Does set it apart.
Can you imagine? Sorry, Kat.
I was going to say, it's just like a happy little mafia where, nobody dies.
Can you imagine, right? If phylloxera had never happened and that, like, cognac was basically Scotch whiskey. So could you?
I know.
Because that could have happened.
It nearly was, actually. I was looking into this quite a bit recently because I did something for the release of a whiskey and then a wine finish, and I thought I'm going to study, the sort of correlation between Scotland and Bordeaux. There's a really good book called Knee Deep in Claret. I don't know if you read it, but yeah, if it wasn't for the sort of, I can never say the name of the beetle, the phylloxera thing. Yeah. Like, Scotland was pretty much just a nation of wine drinking. We had such a special relationship with France. We used to get it cheap. We used to get the best quality wine imported. Lots of merchants in Scotland, were wealthy because of wine. Like, Leith grew because of wine. We very nearly were just a nation of wine drinkers.
Give it another 100 years and we'll have the climate to grow grapes. So there could be again.
Oh. I am a big subscriber to the fact that Scotland will become like a well-known winemaking country, like 100%. Like, we'll be like the Portugal of, like, Northern Europe, because I mean, the climate's unpredictable. Like, the weather, it was sunny 3 days ago. Now it's snowing, but 100%. Like, you can see it in England already. I mean, it's kind of like almost how they do with their cider. And all the the orchards they have for apples and stuff down in Somerset and places like that. You can see that Scotland at some stage will become, not just whiskey, but I mean, this is other thing as well. Like, how is the climate going to affect whiskey maturation? Like, are we going to go from 2.5% a year to like 3%, 4%? Like, are we going to become like bourbon? Are we what's the loss going to be for climate change? It's
not just that as well, but the barley as well, because we're utilizing this barley. It's been so engineered and cultivated to be high yielding, fast growing, but it's lost its resilience. So it's not it's not resilient to these fluctuations in weather. So we're going to have to start looking at other types of barley and how that affects how much we produce, because it's not so high yielding, and B, the flavor profiles of it as well.
I mean, we're lucky.
It's really easy for a farmer to sell his land to a housing estate.
Because you have to remember how whiskey came about in the first place was, it's easier to sell, a bottle of whiskey versus a ton of grain, or more efficient. That was certainly the case with American whiskey, anyway. So you're right, Kat. Like, if barley becomes redundant, what becomes the starch, sugar component of whiskey?
Right there. Yeah.
I know. It's definitely all things that's going to be on the radar sooner rather than later, I think, whether it's, peat, as we were speaking about before, whether it's the barley, whether it's maturation, it's all going to factor in at some point, I think, unless we just fix global warming. But that's not an overnight fix, I don't think.
So to sum up,
what we need is some alien friends to come down, fix global warming, and enjoy our whiskey and buy a lot of it, and then bugger off again.
I was going to say almost what you said, Mike, because I think you summed it up actually better. I was going to say, if aliens come, can they bring some barley with them? and some peat. But actually, if they fixed global warming, that would probably be more sustainable. So
I'm only going to tolerate aliens if they come and fix global warming. Then that's the only way they're getting invited over.
Or if they bring barley.
Well, grudgingly, okay, but bigger picture.
What kind of barley? Golden
Or
promise.
maybe they'll bring some alien space juice that just outshines whiskey entirely, and we'll just forget about whiskey and go, right, just keep bringing us this, and we'll set up some intergalactic export trade deal.
Well, if an alien turns up and puts me out of a job, then it's definitely going back on my shit list.
Think of the space tours you could do, though.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, actually. Space tour guide, bobbing around like that beaver out of SpongeBob SquarePants. Why was that beaver in SpongeBob SquarePants? I've never understood that. It's a weird show, anyway.
Is Mark Wahlberg in that as well?
He voiced the beaver. He was a very Bronx beaver.
Is it a beaver in SpongeBob SquarePants? Like the
I have no idea.
Squirrel
There's
thing.
a pineapple. No, it's not pineapple. What's the pineapple?
No, he lives in a pineapple.
He lives in a pineapple, yeah.
He has pals with a squid. I don't know. Mark Wahlberg's not in it.
We've talked about some weird shit tonight. We've talked about farts in jars. We've talked about Transformers and SpongeBob SquarePants and octopuses and aliens. This is not what I was expecting, guys. Like, this was not in the small print, okay?
I think we did say we would diverse a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all whiskey related.
Yeah, I think you took a chance, Mike, and you said, "Do you know what, Kat? Do you want to try the Blether for a while?" Yeah.
I mean, at least with Russell, we talk about whiskey a lot, but we also talked about lampposts and telegraph poles.
We have talked about a lot of whiskey, also.
Yeah,
we've definitely.
So, guys, do you think Coppercairn, should we try and do Inverurie Whisky Talks? Would we have enough people?
You'd certainly have two. You have me, Cat. We'd be up for it. I think it'd be good fun. Maybe a podcast version or something like that. We'd certainly be up for.
Where would you host it in Inverurie? All you've got is like the town hall, and you're not reaching big numbers in the town hall. I don't think you've got a suitable venue in Inverurie.
The town hall would fit. Well, it can fit 500.
No way, can it?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, there we go. We've got our venue.
I can't guarantee we'd get 500. I think we could get 400 easily, but 500. Let's just wait and see. Okay, we'll just.
And we're right in the train,
Charlie's coming also, so we're now up to 3.
Yeah. We'll fly Charlie in from Norway. Absolutely. Do you know Charlie, Fraser? Have you met her on your travels? Shamri, she's
she's in the chat tonight, yeah.
She's in the chat tonight. She's a blogger and with whiskey critic from Norway, and she's won quite a lot of awards. Charlie, type in your resume, and Fraser can maybe get you over as a speaker.
Yeah,
absolutely. She's got a brilliant nose and palate on her. We did a blind tasting virtually a few years ago, and unfortunately, being in Norway, it got held up in customs. So along the way, I gave little clues as to what the whiskey was. And she got the most points of anyone who had the whiskey in front of them. She scored just off the clues, and the clues weren't that big. It was like, oh, this is an American oak. This is 10 years old, and she managed to nail quite a lot of them. And absolutely fantastic. Follow her on Whiskey and Freedom is her blog.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Very, very cool. She did a little bit of work in Ireland as a brand ambassador, 2-time independent brand ambassador of the year in Ireland. And she's just reminded me. So yeah, I worry that she likes Irish whiskey more than Scotch, but everyone has their flaws, right, Charlie?
During lockdown, I was drinking a lot of Teelings. They were doing some really interesting casks, like. Oh God! I know. Yeah, one of my favorite. I'm trying to remember which expression it was. They did it. It was a white. I think it was a white Bordeaux cask. It was absolutely phenomenal. And they did a pineapple rum cask. They did a ginger beer cask. Again, it was kind of going back to that no restraints cask finishing style. But yeah, Teeling. That was a big favorite. So I can understand the Irish whiskey slant on that. And you know, as far as comebacks go, they deserve theirs, right? So
they are coming back, I think, massively.
Redbreast, and you know, you can always hand it back to the OG distillers like Bushmills and those guys. And Jameson obviously were one of the big whiskies which really propelled or kept pushing Irish whiskey as a category. But I think
Jamesons were kind of like the Gordons of Irish whiskey, weren't they? They just kept the flag flying through all the hard times, and they were just there kind of constantly. But
also their distillery tour is one of the best I've ever done as well. We went over to Dublin for one of our ambassador weeks. This is pre-lockdown, and went to Jameson. It was absolutely amazing, and the girl who took us around that day I think it was her first day, and she was absolutely amazing. Like, she knew the script and everything top to bottom, but you know, you can't help yourself. Like, when you go to Jameson, going, so which country is John Jameson from again? Just to clarify, it's always fun to drop that little nugget in. But Jameson, I think, deserve an award for keeping Irish whiskey alive for sure.
Yeah. And it's quite funny on the other side over here is the Aeneas Coppey link. The Irishman who tried to improve Irish whiskey actually ended up
improving
cultivating blends and doing the world the wonders for us.
Yeah. I mean, that whole relationship was interesting, like the taxation of barley, which then led to single pot still whiskey and all. Again, it all comes back to economy and politics that creates this amazing style of whiskey.
Yeah, absolutely. Super.
Even though there's nonsense, we've brought that conversation full circle and ended it on like a fantastic tie-in. Like, that's professionalism. That is.
It's almost as if it was scripted.
Almost.
I think if you've been watching, guys, the last word you used to describe this Blether has been scripted.
Yeah, it was. If it was going to be scripted by someone, it'd be like some sort of AI, and it was like prompted with, "Can you like do a whiskey chat but include aliens, politics,
90s music,
Mark Wahlberg, Transformers,
SpongeBob SquarePants,
SpongeBob, yeah."
Do you know what?
I think we would have broke AI if we'd asked it to do that.
And that's why humans will always win. Variety is the spice of life.
Yeah, very true. Guys, it's been an absolute Fraser. First and foremost, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
It's been such a hoot.
You are welcome back anytime.
No, it's been fun. And honestly, like, I didn't even notice we've been on for like 2 hours and 20 minutes. Like, but I put a massive dent in this ball.
We're so glad Mitch didn't answer first.
This is really good as well, guys. By the way, I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, I'm gonna come over to Inverie and do you know what we'll do? Right, I'll bring a sample of mine. If you can bring a sample of yours in a 50 ml bottle, we'll do a swap.
Yeah,
perfect.
Deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Deal.
Great. Guys, it's been a pleasure to host you. Hope you've enjoyed tonight. Fraser, stick around. We're going to say goodnight. We're going off live, but we want to thank you personally, just off screen. Kat, before we go, who's on next week? Who can we look forward to?
I just checked there quickly because I knew you were going to ask me that. It is Katie. You'd think I would know by now. Katie Fenema, who is the Whisky Ambassador / expert for the Fife Arms in Blether. So we're having
I know Katie. She's great.
Yeah.
She does illicit distilling tours and stuff like that for...
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah. That's going to be fun. That's going to be fun. And we might find aliens up in the Cabrach with Katie.
Well,
you might see Mitch one day.
Fraser, thank you once again. Wish you all the best for Coppercairn. If we can personally help with anything in the tour side of things or the experiencing, let us know. And, it's been phenomenal. Keep up the Whisky Talks. We loved it, and we want to be back at more So keep that going.
It'd be great to get you guys involved in Whisky Talks Aberdeen when we do November again as well. You know, having you guys up on stage or
do you have the time?
Hey, no, I was going to say I don't know if we've got like 2 hours and 20 minutes to do that. But do you know what? Do you know what? Next time we could just put this up on a screen and just play it back for everyone. We can just go to the pub and say this talk.
Let's do that.
That sounds good. I mean, Whisky Talks, and it does. I never really realised the importance of that title. And was that in your mind when you think Whisky Talks, it creates people talking to each other, or was it just we want to talk about whiskey?
So I'll be perfectly honest. We originally were going to call it Whisky Forum, but there was already something with a similar name, so we had to change it to Whisky Talks.
It sounds official, doesn't it? It sounds less fun.
But I've always subscribed to the notion just call something what it is. Mm-hmm. So you know that kind of sticks up to that, I think.
It's been so good to talk to you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully the guys at home have enjoyed it as well. They've stuck around for 2.5 hours, so we must have been doing something right.
They must be really bored.
Charlie, Dave, the rest of you guys in it, thank you so much for joining us. For those who watching afterwards, maybe you're not watching us live, feel free to fire in any questions. We'll do our best to answer it. But until next week, if we don't see you, have a great weekend. Enjoy your whiskey, and we will see you soon.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks,